What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fresh Fit podcast. We got Rollo fucking Tomasi.
All right. In the house.
Oh, man.
Guys, this is going to be the most comprehensive podcast on intersexual dynamics you've ever seen. Let's get into it.
We are live.
Hey, guys. Welcome to Fresh Fit podcast, man. Quick announcements, guys. Patreon.com/FreshFit, where you can find all the exclusive behind-the-scenes content where you guys see us kick people out, all the craziness. Also, get on our Fresh and Fit Clips YouTube channel. We have 90% of the people that follow that watch it aren't subscribed, guys. So please go subscribe to that channel.
Why? You sub to the channel.
Yeah, sub to the channel, guys. It's very easy. And then on top of that, what else? And then get on the DMs on Demand waiting list, guys.
Yes.
July 1st. But
July 1st, we released.
Yeah, we release it, but get on the waiting list. Link is below. Patreon.com/FreshFit. But guys, today is a very important topic. So
it's a very good day.
Yes, it is.
Today is a very good day.
Man, if there is one thing I've heard since the explosion of our podcast, it's been, who hurt you? Where are these numbers from? You're a misogynist.
I feel like
shirts and stores, by the way, guys. Go ahead and click the link below if you guys want to get the merch. I feel like. And there is no person that I trust more and I respect than Rollo Tomasi to have on this podcast to talk about this, because a lot of these beliefs, guys, are rooted in empirical data. And the reality is, guys, this, just like Rollo says all the time, we live in a feels before real society. And shout out to Coach Red Pill. We had a very good discussion about this a couple weeks ago. And the thing is, guys, is that the truth is objective, okay? But your appreciation of the truth is relative. And how you observe the truth is based on your life circumstances or whatever, but it does not necessarily change the fact that the truth is constant and it's objective. But the problem is that we live in a world now where people think the truth is relative, right? And their feelings are objective. And that's not the way the world works. So today, we're going to give you guys an objective look at intersexual dynamics with the data, and we're going to cover several topics, okay? And this is going to be the most concise and best podcast that discusses intersexual dynamics with data. All the links are going to be below after the show, timestamps, everything like that. So you're going to be able to show this to every single angry feminist that tries to claim that you're misogynist or whatever it is.
So after this show, I don't want to hear no complaints about where's the facts, where's the truth,
where are they
where's
getting
the data?
their data
It's
from?
right here in this video. Clip it.
What about?
Send it everywhere to your friends because it's going to be right here in this video.
What about?
And a lot of this data is located in both of Rollo Tomasi's books. Obviously, the original one, The Rational Male, and then book 4, which deals with religion as well.
Religion, and I think people get a little put off by the title of it. It's about religion, but it's not about religion, right? I mean, it's about like you were just saying a minute ago. It's like we live in a feels before reals world. Why is that, right? It's because we make emotionalism and our romantic idealism our like highest order of like of authority, right? If we've made, I said this the other day on my own podcast and this is a chapter from book 4, is that we have made love is our God now.
Yeah.
It's no longer God is love, it's love is God.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you get married, you get married because you actually have real romantic, legitimate love, right? It's not the other way around. You don't like love is the criteria for everything else. Like I'm sure you've heard this before. Like when they passed like homosexual marriage in 2015, love wins.
Yeah,
right? That's whenever you hear that, that's when you know that is like the highest ideal right there, and that's as a result of emotionalism. And it's exactly what you were just saying a minute ago. That's how you get like who hurt you, right? Because it's an appeal to emotion rather than an appeal to reason. Today we're going to talk about reason.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about reason and rationale. The rational.
So
man,
guys,
right?
this is going to be the outline. Okay, we're going to define feminism. Then we're going to talk about the beginning, how men started versus how women started as, hunter-gatherers, the evolution of it, the sexual revolution in the 1960s and first wave feminism, feminism in school, psychology in a gynosexual society, women entering the workforce and the wage gap, do careers make women happy, female consumerism and debt, male sexual strategy versus female sexual strategy, how promiscuity affects women versus men, the myth of equality, power couples, and equal partnerships with women, abortion statistics, which I've argued many times, single fathers versus single mothers, and where do we go from here? So let's start with first defining feminism.
Oh, boy. Okay. So you have to go back to the foggy days of 1848 in the United States here in Seneca Falls, New York. And this was where they had what was really the first convention. There was only 300 people at this convention. And I can't remember the actual name of the convention itself, but in Seneca Falls, I think maybe it was called the Seneca Falls Convention. And it's where the suffragettes, what would become the suffragettes, got together and says, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we want. And when do we want it now? And remember, there was, I believe it was something like 200 men and only 100 women were at this thing. And at that convention in 1848, they got together and decided they were going to create what was called a list of grievances and something else. I can't remember the actual title of it itself. But anyways, so when people ask me like, well, what about feminism? What about feminism? Now, you guys were talking about this just recently, and I actually talked about this about a month ago because I was picking apart Candace Owens when she was talking about feminism. And so I did a deep dive into it on my own channel, like I said, almost about a month ago. And when we think of feminism, we think of Lena Dunham, right? We think of the purple hair, fuchsia hair girl, the girl with the armpit hairs, right? Or the girl who's carrying, mattress girl, carrying her for sexual harassment and that kind of stuff. So when we think of feminism, we tend to think of feminists as being like liberal, progressive leftists right now. And for the most part, that is actually true. But what my argument has always been is that everyone everyone in this room right now, if you were born after, say, 1964 or so, you have had feminism in some way influence the way that you think. And the reason why we're here collected talking about this kind of stuff is because somewhere along the line, we had an ideal planted into our head. Whether we agreed with it or not is irrelevant. The reason why we think the way we do about intersexual dynamics, or we think that our idealized way of how men and women ought to get together, like equal partnerships or egalitarian relationships, all of that goes back to ostensibly the goals of feminism. And so every time the girls come on here for the after hours show, it's always, well, I think we ought to be equal and stuff. What I want to know is, where did those girls get that idea? Where did you get the idea that it was good for you to be like men and women should be 50-50 and we should have an egalitarian relationship and everything will be good? And we know for a fact that when there is a dominant and there is a sub in a human relationship, and I don't care if it's heterosexual or homosexual, there's always a top, there's always a bottom, there's always a dom, there's always a sub. Whether it's in a marriage, whether it's in an interpersonal relationship, whether even when you have to have a hierarchy of responsibility in the military, in business, you have a supervisor and everything else. There's always a dominant personality, and there's also always a quote unquote submissive personality as well. That's how human relationships work. They are not egalitarian. And so that has been ostensibly the purpose of feminism for a very long time. And so you get down to the idea of what is equality and what is not equality. When women back in the 1848, when they were doing they were coming up with the list of grievances and everything, feminism back then is really the same feminism that we have today. So when people ask me about, well, what do you think about third wave feminism? What do you think about second wave feminism? What do you think about first wave feminism? There are no waves of feminism. It is the same movement that has been since 1848. The only difference is this. People want to say that first wave feminism, well, didn't they?
Because I always looked at it first wave, second wave, third wave.
Well, that's because it's from a historical perspective, that's how usually people look at it. But when we refer to it as, well, second wave feminism or militant feminism, that's bad. But first wave feminism was good. Well, why? Why would you think that? Do you have any understanding of the history of the suffragettes? Do you have any understanding of the history of feminism? Okay. Back in the day, back in like the mid 1800s, all the way up to 1920, when they ratified the 19th Amendment, the suffragettes were seen as terrorists. They were bombing churches. They were planning political assassinations. They were they're very white supremacist back then. And on top, there's so much that was going on with that movement that if we were to take those women today and put them in today's society, they'd be part of Antifa right now. And we wouldn't think twice about like associating them with them. So when people tell me, oh, those are the good feminists and these are the bad feminists, it's like, no, there is only feminists. It has only ever been a supremacism movement, and it is a gender supremacism movement. Feminism is a unbalanced way of organizing society. Patriarchy, on the other hand, and people are going to disagree with me on this, patriarchy is a balanced system, okay? Because for men to be in control of society, for men to be in control of the family, for men to be in any way have social authority, that also ideally came with responsibility along with that. So if you were going to be a patriarch, you still had the responsibility to your family, and you still had to pay for your kids, you still had to pay for your wife, you still had to take responsibility for all the things that were going on in your family, but you had the authority to exercise those responsibilities back then. Now, under feminism, we have removed all of that. We have removed the authority and left 100% responsibility, and you talk about this all the time when I hear you with the girls here. So when we're talking about feminism, it's very important to go back in time and look at the historical roots of feminism back then and to where we are right now, and to see how it has sort of, I'll say undermined, but is endemic of our gynocentric social order today. And that's really the point I'm trying to make here, is that we get to a gynocracy, a gynocentric social order through feminism, through that, almost 100 years now. Because if you went back and said, okay, well, we'll start it at 1920 when they got the right to vote, it's been 101 years now.
Okay. So that is the definition. So let's talk about the beginning as far as men and women from an evolutionary standpoint, as far as being hunter-gatherers, how this started with, just basically how men and women view each other.
Okay, so you have to rewind you got to rewind the tape one more time here. A lot of people don't like it when I do this. In the very introduction of religion, I have to use the Evo word. Evolution, and every time you put Evo in front of something, people turn their ears off, right? They don't want to hear it because they think that because it's a binary response. It's either black or it's white. It's creationism or it's evolution. You're an evolutionist. You believe in evolution. It's like, no, it's not a belief. It's a set of it's a predictive framework is really what it comes down to. Is this likely to happen? Knowing what we know about a certain dynamic? Can we make predictions based on what it is that we know? Okay, so that's number one. I have to get that out of the way, because people would, like, whenever you say evolution, okay, well, he's not a Christian, he's not a Muslim, he's not a Jew, he doesn't believe in God. And it's like, no, I read this book right here and you'll understand exactly how wrong you are. Yeah. But so that's number one. I have to throw that out as a caveat first. So let's go back in time. Human beings evolved over the course of many, many millennia. So if you go back to our hunter-gatherer roots, when we were living in tribal organizations, right, for whatever, lack of a better term, living in tribes, and had a nomadic existence. Then we moved to herding. Then we moved to agriculture. I understand the history of it. People are going to say, well, he doesn't understand the history. So we're looking at hunter-gatherer tribes. In those hunter-gatherer tribes, you have a set of roles for each sex. So you've got the men who are physically built for combat. Yes. I've got stats for that as well.
Facial structures,
facial structure, upper body strength. The list runs on and on. We have bone density is another one. That was a good one. Yeah. And then higher oxygen content was another one. Testosterone, more levels of aggression. All of these things that women want to say, that's toxic masculinity. Yeah. Well, that's what we're talking about. Men were built for combat, and they still. We say, well, you don't look like you're built for combat. Yeah. It's like, well, no, not here, not in 2021, but like way back when we were living in the sub-Saharan African savannas, way back when we were living in hunter-gatherer tribes, yes, they were, and that was an intertribal warfare was a fact of life. So the hunters and the warriors were the men of that era, and then the women were the berry pickers, right?
And just so the people know, real quick, we have a bunch of studies in the back that Chris may pull up whenever Rollo needs to refer to something. So if Rollo says, "Hey, Chris, pull that up," just give us a second. He's going to pull it up and show it to you guys, because we came prepared for this one. Sorry, Rollo, I didn't mean to interrupt.
And guys, super chats would not be read during the show. To keep up with the pacing timing.
Yeah.
I'll show them.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover. We got
a lot to cover, guys. But thank you so much for the super chats. We're going to put all of them on screen. And we'll shout out the super chatters at the end, as many of them as we can. Yeah. We want to make sure we get through this, guys, because it's a lot of stuff to cover.
Enjoy all the gems here, guys.
Yeah, enjoy the gems and just listen up, guys. Get that notepad out. Like I said, this is going to be the most factually based conversation on intersexual dynamics that's ever been put on the internet. We did our homework today. So Chris might have to pull up studies for us, guys. So Rollo, just let them know when you want it.
Sure.
Sorry, go ahead. Going back to men and women being evolved for combat.
Evolving for combat, evolving for the hunters and the gatherers. Okay, so women tend to be the nurturers, the hunter-gatherers. And the reason for that primarily is because women are the vulnerable sex.
Yes.
Okay. Whenever we talk about, women are the weaker sex, women are the sex, a lot of women, when they hear that, they lose their minds. Because they think, well, I can kick any guy's butt. So have you seen how weak these guys are around? I can pull the trigger as well as anybody else, right? Well, you're thinking in 20th, 21st century terms.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Got it. We're talking about way back in the day because we are still the same machines that we were back then. And now, have we progressed from there? Have our brains? Yeah, of course we have. But like we still are beholden, let's just say, to a lot of the same biological truths and factors that our ancestors did. So you go back 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, 400 years. You keep going. How far back do you want to go? You can keep going back 2,000, 3,000, back by millennia. You're still talking about the same basic human machine that's been going on for a long time. So when we talk about like hormones, we talk about testosterone, we talk about all these differences. We like to talk about like how men and women are different. I say this all the time. Yeah. Men and women are different. Okay, it's not, and we are. And so when I say that, I have to point this out is that we are more different than we are alike. And I know people hate it when I say that because they go, well, intelligence this, intelligence that. Yeah, that's true. But those gender differences begin in the womb, and even at the microscopic level, even at the cellular level, there's differences. When you have a female zygote and you've got a male zygote, when you've got those two, like, those clumps of flesh, as everybody wants to, clumps of cells, right? That's where those sex differences are taking place, right then and there. And another great book, and I didn't give this as one of the links or anything, but another great book, if you want to read about stuff like this, Dr. Steven Pinker's The Blank Slate, The Modern Denial of Human Nature, is biologically speaking, sociologically speaking, psychologically speaking, neurologically speaking, has done his homework really well. Say what you want to about Dr. Steven Pinker, whatever, I don't care. He did a lot of good work when it comes to that book. So you have that. So you've got the hunter-gatherer societies way back in the day, and we are still sort of dealing with intersexual dynamics in the 21st century that were unique to the machine of way back in the day. So yes, societies have changed, agriculture changed a lot of stuff too, but the biology is still there. So women still bear the greater investment cost of pregnancy. That's what makes you the most vulnerable sex. Damn. Not because you're not G.I. Jane, not because you can't hold a machine gun and use a flamethrower or whatever, okay? It's because it takes 9 months for you to gestate a child. And back in the day, that could have been a death sentence back then. Yeah. If you pick the wrong guy, even if you pick the right guy, it could have been a death sentence back then. And so that's why women are the choosier sex. They bear the higher investment cost when it comes to pregnancy because they are the most vulnerable sex. So think about it this way. Takes 9 months to have a kid, takes how many years to raise that child from coming out of the womb to self-sufficiency? 7 years? Maybe 8 years, somewhere around there. And it takes a village to raise a child, right? Yep. We need the community to help. We need the father to help. We need investments in those children to ensure the survival of the species.
Which is how polygamy existed for so long.
Used to
raise children.
Yes, it used to be. That used to be how it was done. Marriage, by the way, wasn't just a contract. It wasn't even so much a ceremony. It was just that's my woman. I had a kid with her, then that's the one that I'm with. That's the one I'm invested in right now. And so when I talk about men and women being different, we say, "Oh, you're the weaker sex." You'll never hear me call women the weaker sex. I always say they are the vulnerable sex. And so, what do you need if you have one member of the sex that is the most vulnerable of the two? What do you need to balance that out? You need strong, dominant, violent men who can protect that woman and be parentally invested in that woman and provide for that woman. And that's why when we talk about high-value men today, we're still really referring to the needs and the psychological needs and the instinctual needs, like the brainstem lizard brain needs of women back in millennia ago on the sub-Saharan African savannas back then, because that's what they're looking for. That's why they're sexually attracted to a guy who's built, a guy who's dominant, a guy who's taller than they are, a guy who has a good jawline because it shows that he's got higher testosterone content. There's all kinds of physical cues. Now, you can argue with me about the science, you can argue with me about Darwin, you can argue with me about whatever, but what you're not going to argue about on this show every time these girls come in here is exactly what they want. Every time they come in here reflects back to exactly what I've been talking about from our evolutionary past. That's why it is important to understand those things. And even if it's not 100% provenly true, right? Where you're saying it's just so rational, backwards rationalization or whatever, it still provides a predictive framework. And you know what? That predictive framework works right here on this show probably in another couple of hours. And you will see.
There you go.
I guarantee. Okay, here's my guarantee. All the stuff that we talk about today, when you bring the girls in later on tonight, you will see all these girls, when they give you the answers to all the questions and they start getting into it back and forth and everything, you will see exactly what I'm talking about if you pay attention to this show right now.
Yeah, bang, bang.
There you go.
All right, so we're going to go to, so for those of you guys that are just joining, it's a facts machine already. We covered the definition of feminism. Number 2, the beginning of how men started versus women as hunter-gatherers. We just discussed that. Now we're going to move on to the sexual revolution of the 1960s and first wave feminism, which Rollo, you were saying did not exist. It was just feminism.
Well, first wave feminism is the suffragettes, right? It's
okay.
We want the right to vote. We want the 19th Amendment. That's the supposed, quote unquote, the good feminism, right? Remember also, and I think a lot of people lose the narrative on this as well, is that historically speaking, remember it was men that gave women the right to vote, and it was, and in fact, it was one man. One guy that gave him the right to vote, and not that one yet, but do have that on tap. We're going to get to that today.
We have a bunch of stuff ready for you guys. Sorry, go ahead, continue, Rollo.
So, and a brief history lesson. August 18th, 1920, I believe it was a senator from Tennessee, and I can't remember the kid's name because he was like 22 years old.
Oh, shit.
And he was anti-vote, right? He didn't want to give women the right to vote. And his mother sent him some sort of letter because she was like, "Yay, go give women the right to vote," right? Gave him some little letter that says, do the right thing, sonny boy, and vote for votes for women, kind of thing. And he changed his mind because he was a mama's boy. And so it took one blue pill beta to ratify the 19th Amendment. Go look at the history, man. Every August 18th, I bring that up, and people go, "What are you talking about?" And it's true. It took one beta male to ratify the 19th Amendment.
Wow. Okay.
Sheesh.
And that was there's a deciding vote. They were deadlocked except for him.
Hey,
Wow.
that goes to show, man. It starts with men and it ends with men.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
So anyway, so that's the first wave that we like to say is the good wave of feminism, and now we have like the creepy, weird wave of feminism, and they hate men. It's like no, that it's always been about putting women into a position of power. It's always been where we're at right now is what feminism has always been about. It is a gynocentric social order, and technically we were there since 1965. So you asked me about 1965 and the sexual revolution. In every book, not just the fourth book, I covered quite a bit in the fourth, but in every book that I've written about, I always peg the changes that we deal with today in modern society, or the girls that you're dealing with today, they were created in 1965.
Yes,
and
I agree.
With one invention, and that was hormonal birth control.
Bang, bang.
Never in human history has there been a more radically changing invention. I would argue, and I've said this before, I would argue that hormonal birth control, the pill, was more societally changing, world changing, humanity changing than the atomic bomb. Because the atomic bomb, you blow everybody up and we're all dead.
Yeah.
The hormonal birth control changed the way that men and women interact with each other. And so you got casual sex. Like I'm in my 50s, right? So I've never known a time where there wasn't like, hey, Studio 54, let's all, key parties, let's swingers, and it was like free, casual sex. I'm growing, as you can tell, I grew up in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And so there's always this, and we're talking about this, like you talk about this all the time on this show, is like, should a man be able to cheat on a woman, right? Those kind of conversations prior to 1965 were probably not something that a lot of people talked about.
Yeah.
And hypergamy, which we talk about all the time, certainly in the Red Pill, that was not something that was brought up back then. That was not something like that. Women's sexual strategies versus men's sexual strategies was not something that was talked about because it was kind of like the unwritten law.
And don't worry, guys, we will get into that. I know you guys are like, my hypergamy, male sexual strategy. We will talk about that. Don't worry.
We'll get to that. But more to the point, 1965 is when hormonal birth control was really coming into its own, and as a result of that, you got the sexual revolution. You got the free love movement. You got the hippies and Woodstock and Summer of Love, right? And then
psychedelics, all that.
From there, you got disco. Let's have Studio 54, and then you got AIDS in the 80s. If you go and you look at the rise in, like, abortion was ratified in, was it 1974 was Roe v. Wade? I believe it was 1974. So from that point, from 1965, you see all of the stats for everything we're going to talk about today, like marriage rates, for instance, today are at the lowest they've ever been since they started recording them.
1973.
73.
Yep.
It's almost there. Almost on. I was almost on. So when we talk about the marriage rates are in the toilet right now, okay, it's been on a sharp decline ever since when? 1965.
And guys, we will talk about marriage too. Don't worry.
Rise in divorce. It spiked right after 1965, and then it kind of decreased, and now it's at the lowest it's ever been because marriage is at the lowest it's ever been. Nobody getting married, nobody's having divorces either, or fewer people are having divorces anyways. Child support laws, Duluth model of feminism, and Title IX programs, all of these special dispensations that you see being sort of worked into the societal fabric when it comes to what I've called fempowerment, empowering women kind of thing.
Yeah.
All of that started right around the end of the 60s, maybe into the early 70s, depending on what we're talking about. No-fault divorce, there's another one. And if you look at where all of those spikes either drop off or they go up, it all goes back to one event in 1965. And what could that event
what it is.
What could that possibly, a Scooby-Doo?
Nani?
It's a Scooby-Doo mystery. Yeah, exactly. And so when you look at that, what we've done is we've said, okay, men, women, you can now have sex without the worry of pregnancy now.
Bam.
And that changes the dynamic because prior to that, you had women were choosing men based on different criteria. They were choosing men based on their ability to provide, their ability to keep a family, loyalty, dependability, all of the things that we still, like guys who still rely on that old order way of thinking. Well, I'm going to get a job. I've got a good degree. I'm a good catch, right? I'm a good prospect. All of those, that old order thinking all came right up to about 1965. And then things started to change. Not immediately, but certainly over the course of 60 years. And that in terms of humanity, 60 years is a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And that's how radical of a change it was to say, guess what, humans? Women are now in control of the reproductive process.
Bam, yeah.
Because it's only women that get to have the pill. Men, you can still rap the rascal if you want. That's the only option you have. But women are unilaterally in control of the birthing process, in control of the reproductive process. Yeah. Now, people are going to say, well, you can just keep your dick in your pants, right? Well, yeah, you can. But once the sperm leaves your body, you are effectively powerless at that point. Legally, socially, personally, you are effectively powerless once it's out of your hands there.
Exactly.
And so women are the only ones who get to decide whether a fetus lives or dies. Women are the only ones who are primarily responsible for hormonal birth control. And I'm not trying to absolve responsibility of men. I'm just saying that the lion's share, like a lot of the responsibility for the reproductive process is based on women's choices and women's selectivity now. So what we've done is we've effectively taken men's sexual strategy as the primary sexual strategy for humanity. And we said, you know what? Put that on hold. We're going to make women's sexual strategy the number one thing that's going to define society, which is hypergamy, right? Alpha fucks, beta bucks.
Bam.
Yeah.
And guys, real quick,
We just hit
250,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. Because I'll tell you guys this, last time Rollo was here, we hit 20K. And I want to say this real quick. Please, open another tab, search Rollo Tomasi on your YouTube browser. Subscribe to him.
Right now.
Get him to 100,000 subscribers,
right
guys.
now.
I'm 1,300 away
So
from
yes,
100,000.
So literally, if half of you guys do
By
us
the
a
end of
solid,
this show.
okay? Open up another tab. Rollo Tomasi, ROLLO, Tomasi, TOMASSI. Okay? Hit subscribe. Get him to 100,000, man, because we are going to give you guys this is going to be the best podcast on intersexual dynamics ever.
Guys, actually, all he needs is 900 more.
Oh, is that
so
where I'm
guys,
at?
real talk, I'm going to be watching right now.
Go
Sub this channel. Do us that one favor, and we got
That's
you.
all we ask, man.
And
I
look,
don't even care if you like this video right now. Go subscribe to Rollo
real
Tomasi.
talk, the gems you got from this alone, it was valuable, right? Imagine all you can get on his channel. Crazy, priceless.
You guys got to 250,000. That's great.
There you
I
go.
remember when I was here in March, and I told you, said by the time I leave on Friday, you're going to be at 50,000.
Yeah,
and you were.
I was like, man, maybe, but he was right, man. He was right.
Yeah, and you got to start 20,000 as well with Hotep, man. So, guys, please subscribe to Rollo Tomasi. Let us pay it back to the Godfather himself.
Hey, went up. All you need now is 700 more.
All right.
Guys, let's do it, man. Let's do it, man.
Please, get up to 100,000 during
Come
the
on,
stream,
guys. Let's do it. Let's do
okay?
it.
We got 5,000 live viewers, guys, so like the video and go subscribe to Rollo Tomasi
Shout out
first.
to all the new members as well. Let's keep it rolling.
Okay, so we defined feminism. For those that are just joining us, we defined feminism. Then we talked about the beginning, how men started versus women as the hunter-gatherers from an evolution standpoint. Third, we talked about the sexual revolution and first-wave feminism to include the critical invention of birth control. Now we're going to talk about feminism in school, psychology, and a gynocentric society, because obviously with birth control, it allowed women to, I guess, biological impedances were slowed down from giving birth. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Okay, so you've probably heard this before. This was back in the Gloria Steinem days of quote unquote third wave feminism. I like to refer to it as militant feminism because that's really when, like, as soon as hormonal birth control became popular, that's when you saw the rise of what we now consider feminism as a thing, right? That's when you got Our Bodies Ourselves. That's when you got Gloria Steinem. That's when you got, what is it? A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. We hear that to this day. You know where that came from? Like 1970, right? And the feminine Mystique, and I can't remember the name of the lady who wrote that. Another feminist luminary, right? And so from that point on, you saw that the power of hormonal birth control, the unilateral power that was in women's hands, was not lost on feminism at that point, right? That's when it was burn the bra, right? It was at about the same time as everybody was.
Betty Friedan,
right?
The
feminine Mystique, yes. Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem are like the two luminaries of feminism, 70s militant feminism, anyways, and so you've got women burning their bras. You've got the Vietnam War protests, and you'll notice that whenever there's like civil unrest, that's when women that's when feminists start agitating as well for themselves. So even like when we got Antifa today, you'll see women wear a pink pussy hat and go running around in the streets,
streaking naked, standing in front of the police officers naked, bare naked on the street.
That's because women. I'll just as an aside, that's because women's only real true agency in this life is their sexuality.
Bang.
And that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that your first best agency, assuming you're hot, assuming you look good, is that it's your sexuality gets men's attention.
Yeah.
So when women want attention and when women want you to pay attention to them and they are looking for you to hear what they're having to say, they have to be overt about their communications. The first reflexive thing they do is take off their clothes.
Yep.
And we can see this over and over and over and over again. Now, if I were saying this in 1970, 1980, 1990, people would be like, that guy's just crazy. But because we live in the age of social media, we see it every single day. We see it every day at every protest and the slightest
George Floyd protest.
Free the nipple, right?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, buck naked in front of a police line with riot shields, right?
Exactly.
Oh, I'll take my clothes off. Good idea.
That's how they protest.
Funny,
Exactly.
attention is at an all-time high now because of social media.
Exactly.
And I wanted to also point out that the reason why we're even having this conversation right now is because we live in an era where we can do this. So the reason why I have all these stats, the reason why I've got all this stuff, the reason I was able to cite sources like I did for book 4 is because of the internet. It's because we have access to this information, and the layperson has access to this information like never before. That's one of the things that's really kind of changing society and our understanding of intersexual dynamics. When we complain about incels or MGTOW or this or that, or when women say who hurt you and stuff, they're reacting because it's this old order way of thinking. But your opinions and your understanding of the why this show is at 250,000 right now is because you have access to this, and the guys who are watching you have access to this, and women don't. Either they have access to it too, they just don't. They're tunnel vision, right?
Yeah.
They just don't want to hear what you have to say because it's not in their best interest too.
Yep, absolutely.
So
going to school.
where are we at?
School,
so special
psychology,
dispensations.
Yeah,
Okay,
because now that feminism is here, now women are starting to take careers more seriously. Go to school.
Okay, let's just start with one because we got to throw some stats up here. Chris, there's a give me the choices real quick so I can throw this one up there.
Right. Yeah.
This was back in I think.
Time to turn that fax machine on.
So you want charts?
Yeah, give me charts.
Okay.
It was of all people, it was the American Psychological Association, and this was a tweet that I actually screen capped because I thought it was kind of pertinent at the time. Scroll up a little bit. Keep going. A little more. More.
Okay. I'm pulling it up for you guys right now.
One second, I'm going this way.
Keep going back. Yeah, go back. And it is. I'm sure I gave it to you. I thought I did.
I don't see it here, but if we give
that's okay. You know what? I'll just read it.
Which one is it?
It's okay. I can just read it to you really quickly.
Okay.
Good.
Let's see. Here it is. APA.
Is it one of the links?
No, but you know what? I'll just give it to you real quick. I'll push it up here for you.
Guys, in the meantime,
like the video.
Rollo needs only 300 more subscribers.
300 more? Okay.
Guys,
open a tab while
do
we
us a
get this
favor.
for you.
Like the video, sub to our channel as well, but more importantly, go to his channel, Rollo Tomasi, The Rational Male. Sub to his channel.
It's that last one I gave you.
300 away.
It's okay. Last one you just gave you, Chris.
The
Pull that
one
up, please.
the one I just gave you now.
Okay.
Guys, because without Rollo helping us to some extent, you probably would never have found us. So
Yep.
show love back to
Seriously.
him as well. Sub to his channel.
Let us pay it back.
So
to the Godfather.
I'll read it. I'll read it for you here. The graph is important too, but
Okay. And this graph illustrates what again, Rollo?
all right, so this is the perfect. That's what I want. American Psychological Association. This was from December 20th, 2018. Okay.
Okay.
Female grad students in psychology outnumber males by approximately 3 to 1.
Damn.
And have done so for more than a decade. And then if you look at the stats below there, you can see each one of these things here is a gender percentages in doctoral psychology programs. Okay. Health services and subfields 78%, clinical 78%, counseling 74%, schooling 85%, cognitive psychology, and these are the research fields here. 54%, developmental psychology, 82%, experimental, 62, industrial organizational, 62, neural. You can just see it goes on and on down the list there, all the way down to social and applied other aspects. And I think that this is important here because I've used this in the past, is that you look at a lot of people will say, well, what do the studies say? Like, that's the whole reason we wanted to do the show, right? It's like, well, what's your data? Where does that come from?
Where does this come from?
Where does that come from? And I follow a lot of, as you might guess, a lot of evolutionary psychologists, like Gad Saad. There's a guy, Rolf Dengen is a really good one as well. He kind of tracks this stuff. And I forget the guy's name, but he has a really great book called The Ape That Understood the Universe or something.
Okay.
Lots of good data with that. The Red Queen, by the way, by Matt Ridley, really good read. Richard Dawkins. I'm not a big fan of Dawkins, but I am a big fan of
Stewart Williams. They understood the universe.
Yes, really good factual, data-based stuff there. So when I throw these things out there, I think it's important to remember that when we're going to talk about the gender wage gap here in just a minute. So, so when we're talking about the gender wage gap, and I think you had some girl on here that was giving you a lot of grief just like last week or the week before.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So it's over 500,000 views right now.
Yeah, and so she wants to know about it. And what's funny to me, remember I was just saying a second ago how like you have this data, you understand that the wage gap is nonsense. You do too. Pretty much everybody, if you're playing the home game, you probably do as well. You probably understand this.
Anyone with common sense that looks at has their own merit and stats and looks at numbers understands that the wage gap does not exist.
Yeah. And if you go and you look at the data that has been researched by Dr. Steven Pinker, by Dr. Warren Farrell is a consummate statistician. The Myth of Male Power. He did the Boy Crisis recently. He also did a book that a lot of people don't remember. It's called Why Men Earn More. And if you go and you look at the choices that women make.
Real quick. I want to say this. Before we get into the wage gap, can we talk about school real fast, about how women have entered school, which allowed them to get into careers in the first place, and then we'll go into the wage gap? Sure. Fast?
Yeah. So, and this is why I brought these stats up.
Yes.
Because women study certain things. They tend to gravitate towards certain fields, like the things that are more rewarding, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And where the women are, from the time they are 5 years old, they have a blue pill of their own, okay? And that blue pill says, you can do anything, Sally. You can be an astronaut. You can be a neurosurgeon. You can, and I'm not saying that women shouldn't be able to do that, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't be emphasized to be the best. I have a daughter. I would want her to live,
for all the haters out there,
because
you do have a daughter. Yeah.
Yes, I don't want people to think, well, he just wants to repress women and send what is he? What is this, Boko Haram?
Yeah.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. But I'm just saying that from a very early age, little girls are taught, are fed this kind of this bill of goods that this is what you can have, and at the same time, we've got teachers that are primarily 77% of teachers today are going to be female from the time you are a preschooler all the way up until your postgraduate work.
Yep. Chris, you can verify that. You used to be a teacher, right?
Yep.
All women, right?
Facts.
Okay.
And I've got an infographic that's really good about that. We'll get to that here in a second because we're talking about education. But women go into education. They go into communications. They go into psychology. Clearly, they go into psychology, right? They go into HR. That's the standard like cliche. Karen from HR says this. Yeah, because that's what she gets into. She gets into human resource management.
Exactly.
And so women tend, and this is according to the sex differences studies done by Dr. Steven Pinker once again. Men tend to be interested in things.
Yes.
Women tend to be interested in people.
That's a biological fact.
And they choose. And why? Because we go all the way back to the savannah once again, and we go back to our hunter-gatherer tribes, and women had to develop a way of communication, be more sensitive to communication amongst their peers, amongst the sort of the clutch of women that were the gatherers, the berry pickers, and the nurturers, and the women who are, it takes a village to raise a child, right?
Yep.
Well, that at least implies a predictive framework that says that women are going to be better at communication. And guess what? Studies prove that they are better at communication. And they're better at nuances. They're better at reading sub-communications. They're better at reading vocal intonations. They're better at reading your personal expressions, right?
Yep.
I use this all the time. It's like, have you ever been like at the clubs or you've been with your girlfriends or you're in a group, a mixed group, and another girl walks in and maybe she's she's the girl in the red dress, right? She walks in, she walks through nobody knows who she is, and she walks out, and then the girls look at each other and they go, "Did you see the dirty look that bitch just gave me?" And you're like, and you were right there, and that just happened, and she's just like, "Did you see that? Look, she just," and they're like shooting daggers with her, and it's like you were right there and you didn't see it happen, but they did.
Yep.
And that's the degree of sensitivity that they have to communication,
and it's been shown in infants too.
Yes. The face studies, the facial studies,
face studies, and baby females versus baby males, they have more white matter in their brains. They're able to detect social cues.
It's and facial symmetry as well. And so women, vocal intonations, sub-communications, the way you talk about something, the way you telegraph things. When we talk about like pickup artists and game and all that kind of stuff, a lot of times guys telegraph their insecurities to women. Yes. And that's because women are more sensitive and understand like communication cues that men, because men, we say what we mean and we mean what we say, right? We're just like, we're blunt about stuff. We're information driven, whereas women are feelings driven when it comes to a conversation. So for men, it's about the content. It's about the information in that conversation. For women, it's the context. Yeah. How did that conversation make them feel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is funny because whenever you go on a date, right? She knows if she's gonna smash you or not, because she can tell, by how you make her feel on the date. If not, it's like, you know what? I'm off for this guy. I'm heading out of here.
Right.
Yep. Or I'll say a fact, and the girls will like, I just don't like the way you said it.
Yeah.
Right. Tone.
They'll have an issue with it, including Lonnie Love when I said punish bad behavior. Right. Shirts and stores. They're like, I didn't like the way he said it. I get what he's saying, but I didn't like the way he said it.
It's the truth, but I don't like how he said it.
Exactly.
Right.
So there's proof right there.
And let me tell you something. I get that all the time. It's called tone policing, tone monitoring, tone policing, I think is what it's called. And so I do that all the time. Like people say, well, whenever I have women who are critics of what it is that I'm saying, they'll say, well, that's true, but you sound so angry when you're telling me about it, right? Or if you just changed your tone, then people would accept. It's like, no, they wouldn't, because we live in a gynocentric social order. I am presenting facts that are unflattering to female nature, and it doesn't matter if I say them like this and just it's okay. It's gonna be all right. I can say them like that, or I can say, hey, here's the damn data right here,
and then they're gonna just be like,
yeah, and it doesn't matter because it's not the way you say it; it's the actual information you're conveying, and they have no counter argument to it. They have nothing else because they're not interested in finding anything else that's against that self-interest, right? I get it. I understand. But it's like the feelings make them that emotion, like prioritizing emotion before reason. And that's a point that I wanted to get. I got another graph for that today too, but when we get to that point, but instinct, emotion, and reason. And so when women choose careers that are more like face-to-face or more person-oriented, those are the ones that they find most rewarding.
Yes.
You don't see women working in construction. You don't see them primarily working in STEM fields unless they're forced into STEM fields.
Yep.
The careers that women choose tend to be like ones that it's like one-on-one, it's you're facing that person, and men tend to be more interested in things. We tend to be the engineers, the architects, though. Let's make a bridge across that river over there.
Programming.
Yeah, programming. And things that are more like concrete, right?
And for those that are wondering, STEM is science, technology, enginering, and math. That's right. What STEM means.
So
guys.
those are the things. And so what happens is when we cater our college
education,
our educational like programs and everything else, we're
test taking.
So what happens is the colleges that were teaching those things, they don't make as much money teaching those things as they would if they were teaching it for a female interests, because all we need to develop our psychology program. We need to develop our communications program because we're getting more women that are coming in that are applying for college, to come into, or applying for grants, applying for money, applying for, student loans and those things. And they're spending that money on these programs.
Yes.
So of course, what are they going to do in those colleges? They're going to cater to that need. If they're a business like anything else.
Yeah.
So
colleges are a business and people forget that.
Exactly. And you have to remember also, we're at a time right now where 68% of college, new college applicants are like women, and I believe it's at least 68 or 70% are graduates are women right now.
And does anyone talk about the fact that women are in college and they may say, oh, you know what? I don't like this subject anymore. I want to change my major. they do that tens of thousands of times, and it's like, you know what? That's more money for the
find
school.
what I really like. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It is. The more indecisive you are in college, the more money that.
So now we know that the education system, I hate to say it, guys, it is a business, and if women are the predominant consumers of college education, the colleges would be stupid from a business standpoint to not cater
to
their
those things.
target audience. You know what I'm saying? It's sales, whether you guys want to accept it or not.
Yep.
So now that we know that women dominate colleges, and we know that they're more interested in things
certain
versus in
certain
more
arenas,
people,
certain areas,
in people than things. Let's talk a little bit about career choice and the wage gap that everyone likes to talk about. Go ahead, guys, and start recording at this point and show this to every single feminist that claims that women make 80 cents on the dollar for every dollar that a man makes. So let's talk about this.
Well, whenever we talk about the wage gap, you have to remember that, and this has been something that's been real. The wage gap was actually disproven not this year, but it was disproven way back in like the late 90s, and we're still to this in every damn presidential election. You'll hear Barack Obama or Biden or whoever is on that side of the fence will say, "Well, we really need to tighten up the wage gap, and this is totally unfair." And what happens is, if there is ever a discrepancy in earnings between men and women, it comes down to really two things. One of them is the choices that women have. Women have, because men and women are different, they're going to make different choices. They're going to go into different fields. Got it. Women, if you...
One thing, though, before we go into it, we should tell them where the wage gap originally stemmed from. Basically, it took all, full-time working men and all full-time working women, and they basically took like how much the men made versus how much the women made, and said, well, men make less money, but they didn't they didn't extrapolate that data to figure out like hours worked, types of jobs, etc. So like that's where the wage gap myth comes from originally, guys, is that men, all full-time working men versus all full-time working women, the men made more money.
Yeah.
Guys, real quick, this is very important.
Yeah.
Stop the show.
Okay.
Please stop the show.
Oh, did I get there?
We have just hit 100K on Rollo's channel! Hey! Shout out to everyone in the chat. Y'all the real ninjas in here. Shout out to y'all.
I love
100K.
you guys. I love you guys.
No, this is a
plaque.
big deal, man.
100K plaque on Fresh and Fit. Shout out to Rollo, man.
Yeah, man. He helped us get our 20K. And it's an honor to help him get his 100.
I'm glad I could push it over on this show.
Yeah,
Shout out to
man.
everyone in the
Thank
chat.
you.
Twitch.
100K on Rollo's.
Everybody, thank you, people in the chat.
I'd like to thank the Academy and my parents.
Thank you guys so much for the support, and thank you for supporting Rollo, supporting us, and getting this knowledge out there. So going back to
Hype Train, please, on Twitch. Hype Train.
Yeah.
Wage gap.
Yeah. You guys were here for that.
Yes.
So
now
going
we
back
have to have
the
a
wage
party.
gap.
Yes, and I will. I'll go rent out. I'll go rent out. Was it Lex in Reno? We get bottle service.
Red Rock.
Girls to come. Yeah, the Red Rock. There we go. We'll celebrate.
$250,000 and 100,000. Big things, man. So going back. Okay. So female careers and the wage gap. So I just wanted to just say that like people wonder where the hell did this come from? It basically came from all working women and all working men, and that was it.
It's massaging the numbers is what it is. It's making the numbers say what you want them to. What? Go ahead.
Oh, Black
By the
Lemur.
way, we gotta talk to the Black Lemur, man. $500. Black Lemur, all supporting, man.
Thank you so much, Black Lemur.
There you go.
Very good. Right. So when we're talking about the wage gap, again, this is something that has been disproven as far back as even like 1998. So I mean, whenever, like I said, whenever it is useful, you will see it trotted out there. And you have to remember, as you were saying, that the wage gap exists when there is an aggregate. We take everybody together and we put it all together and it says, wow, men are earning, or women are earning 77 cents on the dollar, whatever it is today, right? Maybe we've moved it up and we bumped the needle a little bit. And so that's a big celebration. But usually if it comes up to like 78 cents or 79 cents on the dollar, then we have to go, well, we've got a long way to go, baby. And it makes for good press. But the fact of the matter is that the reason that it exists is not because, and this is the second part of all this, is when we talk about the wage gap, we presume that it exists because of endemic sexism, and it does not exist because of endemic sexism. It exists because choices that women make that sometimes they're forced to make, sometimes they have to, right? Like say, okay, I want to have babies, so that's going to take you out of the workforce for a certain amount of time. Maybe you decide that you never want to go back to work, whatever. Those choices are going to be something that is unique to that particular person. But if you take these numbers in aggregate, in some cases women are earning more than men, depending on whatever the particular the industrial subsector.
This was shown at Google as well.
Exactly.
Yep. They tried to say there was a wage gap, but women actually made 8% more.
Way more.
Yeah. And so in some cases, that's the way it works. In fact, in some cases, like we've been talking about, every once in a while, I think I might have picked this up off of Tim Pool of all people, but you'll see these stories about how in some cases there are companies that have to dial back their hiring practices because they're hiring too many women, because there's too many women in those positions that they thought, well, we need a quota. We got to have more women here than we do there. And it's not about the actual qualifications of that person, that male or female. It's about whether or not you have a penis or you have a vagina. And that's really what it comes down to. It's like, how many vaginas do we need and how many penises do we need? And that's really what they're talking about. It's not about the quality or the merit of that, the respectability, the meritocracy kind of thing. It's about the quota side of things. And that comes down to the equality. What do we have? Do we have equality or do we not have equality? If you have hiring quotas, you are more interested in the narrative than you are in actually the success of your company, or the direction that you would like to take your research, or the direction that you would like to, like if you want to develop and innovate something, the next new innovation or invention or whatever. It's just because a woman did it or a man does, it shouldn't matter, right? Because well, sex is a social or gender is a social construction. So why would it matter that? Why would we have hiring quotas if that's the case? The reason we do is because feminism has never been about equality. It has only ever been about retribution and restitution. That's all it has ever been about. And it has only been about a one-sided supremacism movement. And I know that's unpopular to say, but a lot of people need to hear that message. It has been about supremacism from day one. And we're right now, what was it? I was just, you want to talk about the gender wage gap, or the control of wealth in not just the United States, but over the world. Right now, I want to say it was, I forget.
Chris, please pull up the article I just sent you, by the way. It's the Google article, real quick, while Rollo talks about this.
So,
go ahead.
Anyways,
women
women are in control of, like, the World Bank right now. They're in control of the money in the world. The more women are in control of money in the world than men are right now. They say, well, we only earn 77 cents on the dollar. Well, as long as you are focused on those, rejiggered, stats, then yeah, you're only going to be focusing on that fact. But the thing is that women control wealth more than men do. Women have more direct control over wealth. The other thing we were talking about schooling just a little while ago. Women account for 2/3 of all student debt right now, and I think I gave you the stats for that one as well. Yes. But I believe it's something like $969 billion of the trillion something that they.
Can we pull up that article real quick, Chris?
Yeah, we can't because we've reached a limit of free articles apparently. You see? Right here.
Oh, what the?
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird.
Wow.
Well,
Okay,
we'll put the link. We'll put the link in the description.
We'll put the link in the description. But guys, yeah, basically Google did a little investigation. They actually found, they thought they were underpaying the women, and they found that they were actually underpaying the men by about 8%.
Yeah.
And the thing is that with the wage gap, they never compare apples to apples. They always try to compare apples to oranges. And what they're trying to say is, let's compare a man who works 80 hours per week to a woman that works maybe 70 hours per week, and they have the same position. Or they don't use meritocracies. They don't use education. They don't use all these other factors. But when you use these other factors and equalize it, you start to figure out that the wage gap almost disappears.
Right.
The problem is this, going back to what Rollo said, it's not about equality. It's not about real equality. What they want is equality of outcome. You know what I'm saying? Versus equality of opportunity. And that's two different things. You can't get equality of outcome. That's just not the way the world works. And the wage gap hinges upon this premise of we deserve an equality of outcome. And that's just not the way it goes.
If anything, we overcorrected. And I hate to get religious here, but think about this, right? At the beginning of time, men were in power. Now it's women in power. So now we're flipping the script. And in religion, what did it say in the end times? Women are going to be in control of men. So I just feel like it's a whole agenda here being pushed, and like they're winning, man. So,
yeah. And I'll say one other thing too. There are numerous articles, and Tim Pool talked about this too. You referred to it. Women find a majority of men as economically unattractive,
Yes.
and not in modern day. And not only that, in a lot of major cities, women are earning men.
Yep.
So what does this does this tell you?
I got another great one. I think
Sure,
I
go
sent
ahead.
you this as well. This is off of
You want us
Zero.
to pull it up?
This is no, it's okay. I'm just going to read the title of this,
Okay.
the headline of this. This is off of zerohedge.com.
Okay.
Wage growth stagnation hits men harder than women. Okay. And the reason for that is because men are in certain sectors that are more impacted than women will be. So when, like I said, the choices that women make to get into those certain fields, they're going to be subjected to certain like economic stresses, whereas men are going to be subjected to different economic stresses based on the choices that they make, right?
Yep.
So if industry starts to take a hit, it's men that are going to hit that, are going to feel the brunt, like the wage growth stagnation, right? And so when we talk about 77 cents on the dollar, if you take it in aggregate, if you take everybody together, then yeah, that might be the case. But when you take those subsectors, like if you talk about like like no women are working in raw sewage, okay? No women are like they're like they're construction, right? Men account for the 98 or 99% of all workplace deaths. Like if you get pulled into the machinery
Let's
or
talk
whatever,
about that.
yeah. So there's a lot of
Physical labor jobs.
downside, right? And it's men who are like men are predominantly the infantrymen, right? I mean, they're the guys that are out there that are taking the risks. They take more risks. They're the ones who are out there. You ever seen Most Dangerous Catch, right?
Yep.
Ain't no women on those boats.
No. And here's the other thing too. Shout out to I want to say this as well. Me and Rollo talked about this in depth yesterday with the Scandinavian countries, right?
Right.
If you look at the Scandinavian countries, they have the strongest egalitarian laws pretty much in the world, right?
Everything has to be equal. Right?
They're the most socially forward of any other country, any other society right now. And what that's shown is that when you leave people to their own devices with 100% choice, it actually separates them even further as far as careers go.
Because they default to their innate way of thinking about things.
Yeah.
So, men and women are different. We have different natures. They have different choices, and that's part of it. So just what you were saying a moment ago, equality of outcome versus equality of opportunity. If you go to Denmark, if you go to Finland, or you go to the Scandinavian countries where everything is meant to be like even Steven, right? And they try to optimize equality of opportunity.
Yes.
In that state, as idealized as you possibly can get it, women will choose to go into fields that are more interested in people, and men go into things that are more interested with things, because that's just how the machine works.
Yep.
That's just how our brains work. Men have a different brain architecture than women do. I can show you the studies for that too. People always hit me up on this as well. I wish I did not pull those stats. I didn't know we would get to this today. But if you look at how men's brains are wired versus how women's brains are wired, and you take them and you lay them on top of each other, they're almost complementary. So the connections and the synapses.
We will
between
put that study in the description box for you guys. Don't worry.
And that was from a 2016 or 2017 study in the Guardian. Well, it was from the Guardian, but it's from a bigger study than that. But men and women do not process emotions the same way. Okay, so men, especially negative emotions, men tend to default to anger. Women tend to default to crying, right? Or hysterics or whatever, and untrained and, just left to their own devices kind of thing. So there are innate ways that we have emotional responses. And for men, we don't like women will say this all the time. You get this on the show here too as well, because we always appeal to emotion, feels before reals.
Yes.
Well, the reason why we do that is because women think, because we're all equal, right? We're all blank slates. So women believe that you, as a man, emote the same way that she does as a woman.
Yes.
And she says, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Well, who hurt you? Why is there something wrong with you? Well, it's not that there's something wrong with you. It's you're not wired the same way she is for emotion. So where she's prioritizing emotion and you're prioritizing reason when you're presenting these facts, that's how you get I don't like your tone, mister, right? And so it's if you would just deliver this on a nice, sugarcoat this for me, it would be better. No, it's not, because she's interpreting this through an emotional lens where you're trying to deliver it through a rational and reasonable lens, and you have a failure to communicate right there. But the problem is that, and this gets back to the education system, like teaching boys to be defective girls and teaching girls their own form of the blue pill. The problem is that we've made the female experience the correct experience in Western societies for sure, but in a gynocentric social order, to be female is to be correct. So the way that woman feels is the correct way. And if you don't feel that way, you're damaged. There's something wrong with you. You were brought up, and they always default to social constructionism. Somebody taught you to control your emotions and to be this asshole and to not feel. And so it's okay for guys to cry.
You're attacking them.
Yeah. Well, sometimes guys don't cry because we're not wired to cry. We're wired to get pissed off, but we're not wired to cry, right? And so when that woman says, well, you're not crying, you're not expressing your emotions, you're not in touch with your female side, you're not in touch with your emotional nature, you're not expressing your emotions, what she's saying is there's something wrong with you. Because she legitimately thinks that you are stunted or you're retarded. And I mean that in the clinical sense, right? Like there's something that happened to your brain, or somebody taught you something that's incorrect. And if you could just unlearn that, then you could come over to the female way of thinking and be more like a woman, then you'd be better. You'd be a more perfected human being if you could feel like I feel, because that's the way we do things. That's the correct
little boys.
way, right?
We medicate little boys.
Exactly.
We give them, you have ADD, whatever it may be. You're energetic. You can't sit down.
Medicate and sedate.
Medicate, yeah.
Yes. And so what happens is we learn that from a very early age. Like we always say this, is like we raise our boys to be defective girls. And the way that we do that is we presume that the female experience is the only correct experience. So when women prioritize instinct, emotion, and reason, we expect boys to do the same thing. And we will teach them radically different from the way that their brains are simply wired. So if I don't cry at a sad movie, at Marley and Me, right? If I don't, the dog dies at the end of the movie and I don't cry and she's like bawling her heads off, there's something wrong with you. What happened? Did your dad break you when you were a child or something? It's because I don't process emotion like you do, or I don't prioritize certain emotions in the way that you do. It doesn't mean that I'm wrong and you're right, that there's no right or wrong. It's just we are different. That's how it works.
And let's summarize the education system. So now we have children in elementary school, right? You have the girls and the boys. The boys are taught you need to sit still, you need to be quiet, etc., which is more conducive to a child, to a female child succeeding.
They learn differently than boys do.
We learn much differently. Then on top of that, as they progress through school, right? They go. The women, college is set up for women to succeed because it's more set up where, hey, we're going to prioritize programs that draw women in because women are more prone to go to college. They're more prone to spend money. They're more prone to be consumers, which we will talk about female consumerism versus male consumerism guys.
You want to talk about sexism in the university or in school? Is female teachers tend to grade boys differently based on how correct they are in their female experiences.
Yes,
based on like if they're
and
unruly.
Most teachers are females.
Yes, and so they will misdiagnose like behavioral problems as a result of that boy's inability to learn like a little girl because he's wired differently. That's just how it works. Men and women are different, even all the way down to the cellular level, down to the way that our brains are wired. The ways that men mature is much slower. Physically slower than women. Women reach a physical maturity much quicker after puberty and everything else. They get to a certain point and they leave right there. Guys, like the joke is, men don't become men till they're 30, right? It takes longer for us to become. And so if we haven't became at the same rate as a woman, then that means there's something wrong with us. There's something defunct about us because we can't keep up with that. And usually, we go, well, guys they're just so juvenile and they're just men are just little boys, right? And men are just grown up youngsters or whatever, and you carry that over into a power dynamic later on where you've got the wife who's now become the mommy. And she expects the husband or the boyfriend or whatever, like, oh, you're just going to be a little kid men are just juvenile. And so that's where you get those impressions.
So we covered education, we covered the wage gap, and we covered how female choices impact how much money they make. And they dominate college. 3/4 of college students are women, so they have the ultimate choice. And then we also compound it and add in that you take an egalitarian country like the Scandinavian countries, and the more egalitarian, the more polarizing their choices and careers. So it is the fact that women make less money than men is a choice, not necessarily based on sexism. So let's transition over to careers and women.
You know why they get pissed off when you say choice is because they feel like they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
I don't have a choice. I wanted to be a mother. And it's like, it's so unfair. It's like, yeah, it is. It's unfair. There are certain aspects of the differences between men and women that are always going to be unfair.
Yes.
It's a double standard. What is it? Why is it that men can have sex with a bunch of women and they're superheroes, and girls, if you do that, you're a skank or you're a slut.
And we're going to talk about that, guys, too. Don't worry.
Yep.
So let's transition over real quick to careers and female happiness with careers. And, I guess... 1 in 4 women in the United States right now is on some kind of antidepressant.
Oh man, bring that one up. I got that one to hammer away. That's an easy one to find.
The least happy demographic of woman is a woman in her 40s that doesn't have a child, or least happy demographic of human being from the 2011 study is a woman that has a career between I think $50,000 to $100,000 a year, but without children. Can we talk about how careers impact women versus how they impact men and female happiness in general?
I want him to get to that one. Hold on, because
female happiness went down significantly as feminism has emerged.
That's it. Wait, go back one. That's it right there. Put that one up.
We got the channel.
That's an easy one to identify.
All right, so we're going to share this with you
guys.
guys.
We got the channel whatever in the chat.
What is that?
The channel whatever.
Oh, who's that?
Shout out to them.
Oh, okay. Shout out to you guys.
Big channel on YouTube.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you for tuning in, guys. Okay, so we're gonna pull up
that one right there.
Okay, so we're gonna share this one. So guys, we're gonna pull up a graph here. While we're pulling this up, please like the video, guys. comment, and subscribe. And then also make sure to subscribe to our boy Rollo Tomasi.
There it is.
Okay.
Oh boy, this is a great
Let's
one.
break this one down.
I've been using this one for a while now.
Okay.
As you can tell. This is the, and they broke it down by ethnicity and age demographics, but this is white women, 45 years old, 45 plus. Now, remember, to get on that graph right there, you have to have been prescribed antidepressants for at least the last 5 years. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been using it for 5 years. That's the really damning statistic. But if you look at that spike right there in the prescription of antidepressants, that started right around 2010.
Oh.
What happened in 2010 that would have triggered the antidepressant? Let me give you guys, what's your best guess? What do you think happened around 2010 that would have precipitated that spike?
The explosion of social media usage.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. We got that was right about the time when Twitter and Instagram and everything else,
Yes.
social media, the rise of social media is a directly. It's not causation, it's not correlation, is not causation, but that's a pretty damning correlate right there.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and when I see this, what most guys do is when they have used this in the past, they go, "Oh man, so if you're dating a girl and she's 45 years old, the chances are she's probably, she's nuts, she's on antidepressants." Yeah, that's probably true, but they want to use it as sort of like gotcha. But the real data behind all of that is what is creating that? What is the underlying reason for that? I'm always I have a like you were saying at the beginning of the show, I have an obligation to objective truth, an obligation to reality, like empirical, provable reality. That's empiricism, right? That's data. Those are data sets right there. Yeah. What can we determine from those data sets? Mm-hmm. And so you've got all these women who are like, guys will say, well, stay away from women. They're crazy, right? They're all on antidepressants. Why? Why are they on antidepressants? What happened along the way? And how can you avoid that? How can you, because women on antidepressants aren't exactly like a tiger in the bed, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so.
And not only that, let's also keep in mind that as women have gotten, I guess, how do I say this? As they become more career oriented, and less family centric, the usage of antidepressants has went up, and also modern women have the lowest approval ratings of happiness,
yes.
of satisfaction, life satisfaction.
Right.
As they become, it's ironic how as they become more liberated, they've actually become less happy, less fulfilled. You know,
I was when I was doing my homework for this because we talked about, by the way, just so you know how we kind of came to
yes.
how
did we come to
today's show?
Yes.
Okay, well, we were talking about this over dinner yesterday, and it's like, okay, I got to do some homework for this.
Yes.
And so I was sending you the graphs. I was sending you some, basically how am I going to back up my arguments? Here's how we're going to do this. When I was looking for women's happiness, reported happiness is at an all-time low. I just type into Google women's happiness or women depression, blah, 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 right? I'm looking at this. I can't even choose which article because there's so many articles about it. Uh-huh. The Atlantic is one. Like I'm looking for big names at that point. Like why is it that women are so depressed right now? As you can see from the data sets there. Primarily, I think what it is like a lot of women will say, a lot of particularly
they'll say we're cherry picking.
We're cherry picking, but they'll also say they'll say, well, that's those women. That's this demographic. Those are damaged women. We'll always try to find some way to qualify why those women are unhappy and they're not unhappy. So if you ask like a TradCon woman, you go on like Daily Wire or whatever, and you ask Candace Owens, she's going to tell you, well, it's because they're not having babies. And there might be actually something to that, right? Yeah. Because they have been removed from those conventional sex roles or conventional gender roles. I never use the word traditional gender roles because tradition means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. So when I say traditional gender roles, you think I vote for Trump. No, I talk about it in terms of convention. And when I talk about conventional sexual roles, gender roles, we're going all the way back to the savannah, in our hunter-gatherer days. Okay, so those are our conventional roles. Yeah. So when you remove women from that, and again, from 1965, what's the result of the experiment? Unhappy women. Right? We can say, well, it's because of hormonal birth control. Yes, but it's also because of the social fallout that happened in the wake of hormonal birth control and saying, okay, ladies, reproduction is on you. You take care of this. It's all on you right now. And so when they have that, what do they have to do? Remember what women's innate mating strategy is: hypergamy, alpha seed, beta need, alpha fucks, beta bucks. When you take care of the long-term security aspect of women's mating strategy, like as completely as we have in the last 60 years, you got washing machines, you got dishwashers, you got all these, like every modern convenience that men can create for you, and you're still unhappy. You're still like, I don't know what to do with myself, right? I've got too much going on. I have too much choice addiction or whatever.
Paradox of choice.
Paradox of choice, right? So you give them all of that, and like I think it was Pook who said this: is if you want to make a woman unhappy, give her everything she ever wanted. And so that's kind of on a societal level where we are right now with respect to that. Because what we've done is we've tried to ensure the security side, the beta buck side of hypergamy so thoroughly that women don't have anything to complain about, yet they still will complain. And so now what happens is they only have to focus on the alpha fuck side of hypergamy, which is why you get the girls in here and they say all the same things that they do, because they think that somewhere along the way, they're going to stick the landing, right? They're going to get to 30 years old and don't worry about it, we'll be fine. That's how you get the Kevin Samuels thing going on. It's like you get the women in here who think that they're going to find Prince Charming's going to ride up on a white horse when she's 32 years old and everything will work out. That's called sticking the landing, right?
Yeah.
And so that really what that is, that dynamic is the result of women's impression or teaching women over the course of like the last 60 years that they don't have to worry about that. Or the perception is, I don't have to worry about it because I can take care of my own security, so I'm just going to focus on the hot guy in the foam cannon party.
Yeah, right. And it's funny too. You brought up a very good point about social media. So I think personally that women have made Instagram or social media their god. Yeah. So what happens is they may have a man or husband taking care of the bills. Like we had earlier, the chick that
women admitted yesterday that they did not want to get rid of their social media because it would remove that ability to secure and or find other compatible mates.
Mm-hmm. So they may be happy internally on some level, but then they see another woman getting bags, traveling, independent, boss babe, whatever. And then, you know what? I want that too. But what they realize is that like that woman, that's her journey. That's not your journey. So just because she has it doesn't mean that you're going to get it too as well. So then, like you said, they wait 30 years plus for this random guy who's going to take care of them forever. But lo and behold, they end up on Kevin Simons.
Right.
So
well, one of the things that gets me is like whenever I see like when I see tradcons discussing like marriage or premarital sex or I was just talking about was it Andrew Clavin? I did a show on him not too just like this week actually, and he was talking about marriage. He was talking about like why is it that MGTOWs don't want to be don't want to get married, and because that's a big deal. Just say no to marriage, right? Dr. Helen Smith talked about this way back in 2012. She has a book out that was called, back then anyways, it was called Men on Strike, right? It's not that these guys all collectively got together and said, we're going to go on strike and carry banners and placards or, no women, was it like a no ma'am from like Married with Children, right? That's not what they were doing. But they were disincentivized, even as far back as like 2010, 2008, whatever, not to get married. And so therefore you see marriage rates in the toilet right now. Also, not coincidentally, the average first age of marriage for men and women in the United States. For men, it's 29.7 years old, and for women, it's like 28.9 or something like that. So right about 30 years old. Exactly the time that I always say this is the epiphany phase for women, right? They're 29 to 31 years old is when they're kind of checking out of the sexual marketplace because they cannot compete at the same level that they did when they were 23 years old at their peaks.
Before we get into marriage, so
we got a question about marriage.
We covered women entering the workforce and okay. So for you guys that are joining, we're pretty much at the halfway point. Okay, so let's do a quick little recap. All right, so halftime, we hit the definition of feminism. Then we covered the beginning, how men started versus women as hunter-gatherers. Third, we covered the sexual revolution in the 1960s, first wave feminism and birth control. Then we covered feminism in school, psychology, and the rise of the gynosexual society. Obviously, women being teachers, women dominating education, etc. Then we talked about women entering the workforce and the wage gap, right? Then we just discussed, do queers make women happy? Now, guys, we're going to go into, as obviously women make more money, they become better and bigger consumers, right? So we're going to talk about female consumerism and debt. And then we're going to start getting into sex, and marriage. So, Rollo, can we talk a little bit about female consumerism and debt? I mean, we obviously know some basic tenements that women are 80% of the consumer base. They hold 3/4 of the debt in college, of college loans. and they're the predominant spenders in the United States by a large
Shopping,
margin.
buying online.
I've got a data set up here that's it's crazy. You're gonna actually have to focus in on it. There's so much data there.
Let's pull it up.
Women are the primary spenders, the primary consumers in the United States. I don't think that's a shock to anybody. For men,
Is this one it?
No, keep going.
I'm gonna pull it up for you guys.
No, keep going. It's the colored one.
And while we pull this up, guys, please like the video.
Next one back. That one right there.
Okay.
Pull that one out.
Pull that one up. Like I said, man, we prepared, guys, so we're gonna show you guys
lot of facts
this
here.
right now. And don't worry, guys. All links and all links will be in the description below with the timestamps. Okay.
Yeah, I'll move along here. Okay, so,
go ahead.
So this is I forget where I got that. These are multiple sources cited for this. So I'll just give you some of the other ones. 60% of all personal wealth in the United States is held by women.
Damn.
Okay. All stock ownership in the United States, women control 51%. Okay?
Grandma.
Does that sound like there's some endemic sexism that's preventing women from getting the right to vote? Getting a wage.
Patriarchy.
Does that sound like a wage gap to you?
Nope.
No, it's okay. So what's more important, earning the money or spending the money? Who controls the money that's there of the household? At the bottom of this is real. I use this one in the book actually.
Okay.
Over the course of a family's life, 90% of married women will control its wealth. So even if you stay married, statistically, 90% of the decisions and the money that goes in and out of that family is controlled by the woman in that house. Mm-hmm. You do the books, honey. I'll just give it to you. How's that?
Bam. It's very true.
Purchases by women account for 91% of new homes, 66% of PCs, personal computers, and that's low. And then 92% of vacations. Where are we going to go for vacation, honey? Well, the woman is going to decide where you're going to go for vacation. Bank accounts. 89% of bank accounts are created by the women in that family. 93% of food choices, as you might guess, are bought by women. Spending and power. 80% of healthcare decisions are made by women. 68.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Yes, 68% of new car. This is crazy. 68% of new car purchases decisions are made by women.
Damn.
I want a Range Rover, honey. No, none for you.
Yeah.
75% of women identify themselves as the primary household shopper, and 85% of women of all consumer purchases in the United States are made by women. These women are controlling where the money is going in, certainly in the United States. Okay, these are U.S.
And not
numbers.
only that, now we hit you guys with the numbers. Now let's talk about the reality, the anecdotal facts. Gillette 2 years ago made a very controversial commercial where they literally attacked their target demographic of consumer men, called them toxically masculine. Let's get rid of toxic masculinity. They stereotype men as bumbling idiots and fools, right? And they did that even though they lost a lot of money. The thing is, you guys got to understand, is that they understand that the women buy the razors for their husbands.
Right.
So they were like, you know what? Since most of our consumer base is female, let's attack our target demographic. The audacity to do that, right? When your target demographic, you're attacking your own target demographic, speaks volumes as to who's actually making the purchases.
The advertisers, and I have been one for a very long time. My background has been in advertising, marketing, brand management, for liquor brands, for gaming brands. Anybody who knows me knows what my background is as far as my profession is concerned. But agencies, ad agencies, marketers are all marketing to women right now. We live in a gynocentric social order. So you have women marketing to other women.
Yep.
Men's products, women marketing those men's products to other women who are going to buy them for the men.
Yep.
That's why when you get like Dove men, like I sell you like the shampoo that's for men, they create those commercials so that the women will buy them. I first began to notice this back in 2014. I actually there is an essay for this.
Okay.
It was right after I watched Super Bowl commercials for the Super Bowl for 2014. And I was looking at these things, and I was looking at I think it was the Dockers commercial. Okay. And it was like men who wear the pants, right? And it's like these guys walking around their tighty whities, right? And it's geared towards women buying Dockers so that their pantsless men would wear Dockers, right? That was the whole thing. I was like, that's kind of a crazy ass commercial. And I thought about that, and I go, it's true, because what they're doing is they're marketing those pants to the women who are going to go because women are dressing their husbands, right?
Yeah.
They're like, here, I'll go. Here, honey, I went to Walmart and I got you these Dockers, right? That's what they're doing. And it used to be, and I don't think this is true so much anymore, but it used to be that sports were the only way that advertisers could market directly to men.
Yes.
And now I would say that that's probably not as true as it used to be probably like 10 or 20 years ago. So as far as the Gillette commercial is concerned, yes. If you go and as you might guess, I did another essay about that when it came out, the Gillette thing. That was feminist agitprop right in the agitating propaganda.
How much money did they lose on that?
A lot, actually. I think it was like something like $8 million or $8 billion or something like that. I tracked that. I tracked the data on that to see what was going to happen like in 6 months afterwards. And they took a Procter & Gamble, who owns Gillette.
They turned the comments off on it. It has one of the most disliked videos.
Yes.
And the commercial was actually directed by a feminist.
A militant feminist. It was famous for, prior to the Gillette commercial, she was famous for creating a commercial of talking fruit that looked like vaginas. And singing fruit that looked like vaginas.
And fun fact, a lot of these ad campaigns are actually their ad managers have access to the funds are women.
Yes.
So literally you got women making these choices to women.
Yeah,
so
that sounds good to me. Let's go with that, right?
And another fun fact too, the top heads of CEOs are allowing the women to make those choices. Yeah. So the men are allowing this to happen. So
yeah, well, and they have to, because if they don't, then it looks bad. It's bad.
This
PR.
is what I got here. As of August 1st, 2019, so it could be even higher, guys. The Washington Examiner has updated this story to remove the suggestion that Gillette lost $8 billion due to its Me Too inspired advertising campaign.
$8 billion.
Yeah.
Holy smokes,
guys! If that does not display,
I even got the number right.
Females are that women are not the predominant consumer base where they would take an incredible risk like that. They took an incredible risk to attack their own target buyer to appease to the people that spend the dollar. If that doesn't show that women control the dollar and how it's spent, I don't know what does. That was an amazing risk to take, and they lost. It was a bad risk.
So long story short, when we talk about the wage gap and everything, we talk about earning. Well, and usually it's because whenever we talk about the wage gap, the presumption, again, like I said before, is that it is because of endemic sexism. And it is not because of endemic sexism, it's because of choices. However, what is endemic sexism is women controlling 90% of the wealth in the United States. That we can point to and say that is a gross overstatement of directing that cash where it's going to go.
So do you think, Rollo, this is ever going to change back to men having the power?
I get this every time I talk about these topics. Like whenever I do like harsh data set things, where's the Great Reset? How are we going to make things better? And I've always said this is like, it's going to be a meteorite. We're going to have a meteor's going to hit the planet, and we're going to have the hard reset that way. Yeah. Or we're going to get to a point where society is going to break down. And a lot of people will say, yeah, of course, Rollo's finally on our team. No, it's not enjoy the decline so much as it is when you get to the bottom of the decline, what happens at the bottom of the decline. Yeah. So what is it that you want to happen, and what do you think is going to happen? Are you often like two different things? I'm going to enjoy the decline. I don't think, I'll tell you what I don't think is going to happen. I don't think that there's going to be some magical social initiative that's going to magically make women want to, give up any rights, give up any money, give up any power that they've been given over the course of the last 60 years. It's simply not going to happen. Right. Every time I listen, and I'm going to piss off the MGTOWs here, but every time I hear guys say, repeal the 19th, I'm all for it. Go right ahead. Tell me how you're going to do that.
It'll never happen.
Tell me what, okay, and if you could do that, what does the world look like after that? What is your idealized scenario? What's the best case scenario if we repeal the 19th? Then what happens? And nobody thinks past, well, once the revolution is over, we're going to reform society. Okay, what does that look like? I don't know, but let's go that way. So, I have no idea.
Okay, so guys, we're going to get into now male sexual strategy versus female sexual strategy, and we have 7,000 live viewers right now, guys.
Shout out to y'all.
Please do
like
us
the
a favor.
video, sub to the channel,
yes,
sub on Twitch, and then sub to Rollo as well.
Yeah, guys, just two things. Like this video, open up another tab, subscribe to Rollo Tomasi, search him on YouTube. He just hit 100,000 subscribers.
Yep, thanks to y'all.
Help him keep growing.
Thanks to y'all.
Because this knowledge needs to get out there. Save this video. This is going to be the definitive okay, podcast on the differences between men and women from a fact-based reality. We're showing the studies. All the studies will be in the description after we finish this podcast. But now we're going to go into...
Let me give you one more stat based on
please.
this, because this is a really quick one.
Ahead,
And this from the same data set. Women control the majority of personal wealth in the United States, and the percentage is growing. Today, like I said before, it's 51%, right?
Yeah.
From those stats. By 2030, this is the forecast. By 2030, it will be 66% of U.S. United States personal wealth will be in the control of women.
Damn.
66%. And then
Sounds like a patriarchy to me.
Yeah, and then I've also we also talked about the rise of the she economy, right? The Morgan Stanley, I mentioned it in book 4. By 2030, what is it? 40? I believe it's 45% or 52%. One of those, somewhere in there. Of women of prime working
single,
age will be single by 2030. So that, and the prime working age is 25 to 44.
Yep. And women spend more when they're single.
I believe it.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to transition over to the sex guys. So guys, do us a quick favor and please like this video. And this is what you guys have been waiting for the whole time. So I guess let's talk about
What is hypergamy?
the hypergamy. What is the male sexual strategy versus what the female sexual strategy? What is the female dualistic sexual strategy? And then we'll get into marriage after this. Guys, listen up.
Okay.
Because for you guys that don't understand how women operate, this is the nuts and bolts of it, baby.
Right here.
This is
man.
how all the pickup artistry, all the dating advice, everything stems from what we're about to talk about right now when it comes to mating from an evolutionary standpoint, why women do the things that they do when they deal with men. Let's get into it.
All right. Okay. So, men and the easiest way to explain this is men and women's mating strategies are innate mating strategies. If there's no block, if there's nothing holding them back, there's no filter, men and women's mating strategies are different and they are adversarial. Okay. What that means is that men and women are different, and sometimes our worlds collide when in the best interests of our mating strategies go against whatever that happens to be for women. Now, a lot of women, a lot of guys even will say, well, aren't they mutually beneficial? Shouldn't we all want to seek out the same thing? That happens, but it happens in different ways per the man, per the woman. So let's down in brass tacks here. Hypergamy is women's innate mating strategy. Alpha seed, beta need. Hot guy, short-term sexual benefits, meaning genetic benefits. Getting the hottest guy, the hot guy in the foam cannon party. There's your reference for today. The guy who is Kevin in sales, right? The guy who is the hottest guy that she can get a hold of and have sex with in as immediate a fashion as possible. And we've never made it more easy for women to do that today.
Replication value,
Replication
guys,
value.
which we talked about earlier at the top of the show,
Yes.
evolution.
Yes, replication value, and then there's survival value, which is the beta buck side of it. So there are two, whenever you're looking at women's innate mating strategy, and I don't care if you say it's buffered or this is changes or whatever, the basis of it is alpha seed, beta need. Alpha fucks, beta bucks. Short-term sexual benefits versus long-term security benefits.
Yeah.
So when I talk about beta bucks, it is the provisioning side. And every time you ask one of these girls on this show, what do you look for in a guy? Every last damn one of them will always default to the beta buck side of things because they're thinking in long-term. Right? And I'll tell you why they are here in just a minute. So the beta buck side, it revolves around the 3 Ps, okay? Protection, provisioning, and parental investment. Those are the 3 Ps of the beta buck side.
Write that down, guys.
That's the dualistic nature of women's mating strategy. And usually, ideally, they would like to find both of those things, the hot guy and the best of provisioning in the same guy, right? So that's usually the guy he's the made man, right? He's already there. It's turnkey relationship. He's the winner. That, like Rich Cooper says, women don't care about your struggles. They wait at the finish line, and they fuck the winners, right? Ideally, they would love to do that. Now, in a perfect world, that would happen. This is not a perfect world, and women have, by order of degree, can make that happen or not make that happen, depending on how attractive they are and how much they align with men's innate mating strategy.
Exactly.
So you've got alpha fucks, beta bucks. Those are, and that's the easiest way to break it down. There's a lot that goes on, a lot of more nuance between those two. And whenever I say hypergamy, let's talk. You want to get into the semantics? Here we go. Yes, I know hypergamy as a word was created back in the 50s to describe the Indian caste system of sociology. It's a sociological term from way back in the day to describe how women would like to marry up in Indian society from this social tier up to the next social tier. Got it. Understand. Okay. Don't throw that one at me. I know the actual classical definition of it. Thank you very much. What I have done over the course of 20 some odd years is expand the definition of hypergamy.
As times have changed.
So because times have changed.
To bring it to 2021.
If you want to call it something else, the dualistic nature, whatever it is, I'm all ears. But hypergamy seems to be the best term that's working for a long time, and I'm going to stick with it. In fact, even Dr. Jordan Peterson decided to use it himself in that frame. Exactly. So let's move on. Okay. From that point there, the last thing, and I've been trying to emphasize this in recent, and certainly this last year, is that when you look at women's window of opportunity, when are women at their sexual market value peak? I've always made the joke, they call the store.
Should we pull up the graph right now?
If you have it, I don't know if I have I don't know if I gave him the graph, but it's off of. You might have it somewhere around there.
Sexual market value graph.
I don't know if I have it in there, but it's the. No, it's not. It's not in the ones that I sent you, Chris. It's the it's off of one of my sites. I can go grab it. I'll go grab it here in a second.
Don't worry, I'll get it.
It's my infamous it's my infamous graphic with the blue and the pink, bell curves.
Bell curves.
And remember, that was a very unscientific graph, but it's funny how accurate it was in hindsight. And I made that back in like 2013, 2014. Peak marketability for women is based on how attractive she is. Remember, we said. Sexual market value is based on her agency, and that agency is tied to how attractive she is to the member of the opposite sex. Mm-hmm. That's why women take their clothes off when they want to protest and they want that attention, because they know that's what gets them attention. Even the lizard brain figures that out at a very early age. Okay, so. What you have is you've got women between right around 23 is where I peg women's sexual market value peak years. Okay, yeah, there it is. That's that. Perfect.
There's the graph, baby.
Perfect.
Boom.
There we go. The infamous graph.
Let's expand that a little bit, Chris.
So at the top of the pink bell curve right there, you see that I hit that at about 23 is the top of the peak right there, and that is where women are at the peak of their agency. That's when guys want to get with them the most. In fact, we can look at the stats from the book called Dataclism, I believe it was, and it's a list of stats that was aggregated by I think it was OkCupid, the owners of OkCupid.
Okay.
So we now have access to data where we can figure these things out, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things they figured out is that women right around 22, 23, 24 years old are what men report across the board from age 15 all the way to 105 say that is the age that they find women the most attractive. Yep. That's when they want to bang those chicks, right? 22, 23, 24. That's the chick for me. When it comes to women, it staggers. So when a woman is, say, 20 years old, she's looking for a guy who's about 23 years old or 25 years old, somewhere around there. And if she's 25, she's looking for a guy who's 28 years old or just a slightly older maybe. And statistically speaking, women look for guys who are anywhere between 3 to 7 years older than they are, depending on how old the woman is. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so this is from the book Dataclism. And so for women, it's the staggering. As a woman gets older, she's looking for a guy who's still older, but of around the same. So a 33-year-old woman looking for a 36-year-old, 37-year-old guy, right? That's statistically how it goes. They report that's the guy that they want to get with. Now, we'll get to the Pareto principle here in a second, but I wanted to point this out because if you look at the timeline on the age right there, from the age of 18, and I've never said this on this show before, from the ages of 18 to 28 years old, right before the epiphany phase, that 10-year span for women is a crucial time in a woman's life. That is when she is most able to optimize the alpha fucks side of hypergamy. That's when she can get the hottest guys, as we know, because that's when guys report that this is what we want across the board, right?
Absolutely.
45 years old, I want a 23-year-old.
Yep.
50 years old, 70 years old, I want the 23-year-old. 15 years old, I want the 23-year-old.
She's in the strongest negotiating position to optimize her options.
She has her agency, her power, her ability to control her own life or get the things that she wants according to her sexual agency. That's when she's at her peak. And I will even give you this, between 18 and 28 years old, 10 years. How old do you think an average woman's lifespan is? 90 years old?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, they live longer than us.
So out of 90 years on planet Earth, 10 of those years is when she's going to be able to be at her peak. And that's what she's going to be able to focus on during those 10 years. Everything past that, from 28 all the way till she's in the grave, all of that is spent on the beta buck side of things. That's where she's looking for long-term security. Or if she's not, it's still in the back of the head.
Yeah.
And that's why women obsess, and that's why every chick that comes on here is, I make my own damn money. What do I bring to the table? I got my own career. I got this. And every time you ask them, what do you bring to the table? It's always that the value that they think they have is based on how well they can satisfy long-term security.
I got my own money. I got my own business. I'm going to freeze my eggs. I can go to the sperm bank and have a baby anytime I want. It's anything that is complementary to long-term security. Women today don't think that they are going to ever get long-term security from men. I put this up as a post or as a comment one time when I don't know if it was the last night or it was the night before, but women, when they are looking for a guy, they don't expect to find long-term security in that guy because they think men are either abusive or they're ridiculous or they're incompetent. And so as a result of teaching them this for a long time, they think they have to create their own long-term security. Yeah. That's why it's, I make my own damn money. I'll do what I want. I guess I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life, right? Well, if that's the case, then it behooves you to get a degree, to forget about marriage, right? Because none of these guys will ever measure up, or even if they did measure up, they'll only be good for alpha fucks, and they'll never be good for beta bucks because I don't want to get with a beta. I don't want to get with the chump if I don't have to. They don't have to get with the chump anymore. So now it's that long-term security aspect that is going to stick with them for the next, let's say, 80 years rather than the 10 years that they have that window to capitalize on the alpha fuck side of things. So you have to take that into consideration. So when you're dealing with, like, if you're down here, like, macking on girls or whatever like that, and that girl's between 18 and 28 years old, her priorities are going to be much different than the girl who's 29 to 31 years old, and so on and so forth. And they're not looking forward towards the long-term security because they don't expect to ever find it in a guy. Because their guys are ridiculous. They're stupid. I don't want to have anything to do with guys. I guess I'm going to be lonely for the rest of my life. I guess you are. Because you'll say, I don't need men. You literally don't need men. And women who don't need men don't need those women. Because they want to be needed. We need a purpose, right? So anyways, that's the new kind of thing I've been thinking about with respect to hypergamy is there's how, at what age and what era and what stage of a woman's maturity can she maximize the alpha fuck side and what's the rest of her life, right? And she has a lot longer to wait and a lot longer to depend on with long-term security than she does alpha fucks. And that's why when women come on this show and they're 34, 38 years old or whatever, and they're like, crying or Kevin Samuel says, you're average at best. That girl's crying in her beer because she knows that her that 18 to 28-year-old window is gone. It's long gone. Yep. But she should have been using that window to get long-term security rather than just I'm going to go bang whoever I can bang and get the seed instead of the need.
And let's talk about this as well. We talked about how there was a spike in antidepressant prescriptions in 2010 with social media usage. Let's talk about the globalized sexual marketplace, which has also contributed to this with women taking that 10-year span and not necessarily optimizing it because the grass is always greener on the other side. A woman that lived in the middle of nowhere, Idaho, right, that was beautiful, was constrained to that geographic area of candidates.
The local sexual marketplace.
The local sexual marketplace.
Instead of the
But now with the advent of Instagram especially, where women can advertise themselves.
On demand drop in July 1st.
Yeah, July 1st, guys. Teach you guys how to optimize on the globalized sexual marketplace. But going back, what's happened is women now have more options than ever before. And we talked about how there's that dualistic strategy with long-term provisioning versus, alpha bucks, beta bucks, right? Alpha bucks, beta bucks. Wait, yeah,
you got it right. You had it right.
So when in that 10-year span, especially with the education system and women being told that they can freeze their eggs, they can. There's abortion, there's birth control. There's all these advents essentially to allow women to have casual sex with higher value men with zero consequence. What we've done is we've effectively deregulated the sexual marketplace and we've given all the leverage to the women. But what they don't understand, I say this all the time, is that inadvertently, what's happened is they've given all the leverage to the high-value men.
Right.
Because now, all these women, if you leave them to their own devices, right, and you tell them that you don't have to have a family right now, you could push back a family, you can have your fun in your 20s, what are they going to do? They're going to optimize that sexual strategy of the alpha fucks. And if they're getting hit up by guys in California, that localized sexual marketplace of potential candidates are invisible to her now. And now she's traveling all over the world. We have this society now where so many attractive women are sugar babies. Guys, make no mistake about it. There are girls that have multiple sugar daddies and then a couple guys that they smash on the side that are attractive. It is what it is.
I was with one earlier, bro.
Yeah, there you
she
go.
got sugar
Yeah.
daddy. I'm like, bro, that's crazy.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
So
and that's the thing is we've also in that deregulation we've also created social conventions that make it more acceptable. So if you talk about sugaring or whatever, girls will say, "Yeah, I'm sugaring, but I'm just doing it till I'm out of college, like so I can pay my college." That it's probably that. And why would women go to college? Because they want long-term security at some point. It used to be that women would go to college to get their MRS degree, right? To find the right guy. So I was like, I don't care what I major in, as long as I find a cute guy, right?
Exactly.
That was the thing. No longer is that clearly not, because statistically there aren't as many men at the college as there are women, but we still see the enrollment rates as what they are. But when you're talking about the SSRIs, which is antidepressants and the prescriptions, we just showed that graph just a moment ago. Look at the demographic. Right, 35 to 45 years old. So there's certain things that happen during that time for men and women, particularly in Western societies and in gynocentric social orders. So right around 45 years old, like remember that graph is for women who have been on antidepressants for at least 5 years. So at least 40 till they're 45, and probably before that as well. So you've got those. Consider that. And then also consider that women are less happy as a result of that. And because we have provided them with all this security, and yet they still want to be able to get what they think they deserve, which is the high value guy. I deserve the high value guy and I won't settle for anything less. And they don't have to settle for anything less as long as the perception that long-term security will always be available to them. And that's what we have effectively done since 1965 when we started in the fempowerment movement. So when it comes to when women come on this show and they're like, well, I'll find a guy, I'm 28 years old, I'm still hot, blah, blah, blah. I think I'm a 10, right? Whatever it is. Well, we talk about how women's egos have been inflated and everything, but what we don't do is we don't talk about the hubris. We don't talk about the entitlement. We don't talk about any complete lack of humility whatsoever to get with the guy that they think that they deserve, as opposed to the guy that they're probably going to end up with anyways if they end up with anyone. And the reason why you get Giga Karen on here talking about like, well, I guess I'm going to die alone, right? Because she's like, I won't stand for anything less, right? The reason why she has that attitude is because she has a perception that long-term security is already made for her.
Exactly.
It's always going to be there. Freezing your eggs, sperm donation. I make my own damn money. I've got my own career. I've got my own life. A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle.
Exactly.
Yeah, I want to add to that as well. So, in layman terms of what's going on in today's society,
spell it out for me in layman terms.
Because we're in the game right now. So there's girls out here, right, with boyfriends, legit boyfriends, 7, 10 years, maybe even 20 years, right? Possibly. And they're getting the security of having, bills paid in a household from the boyfriend. However, they also have a sugar daddy that takes them on trips, gives her the luxury lifestyle. Security. But she's playing both angles because she knows she can do it when she's young. When she gets older, she's thinking, oh, you know what? The guy that I'm having an affair with, the high value guy, is going to take me and make me his own. Reality, like you said before, they're not. So then they're going to be left to the streets.
Yeah,
35 years old.
Because what they're doing is they're trying to what I've called consolidate or
double dipping.
They're trying to optimize hypergamy in two different guys.
Yeah.
And again, I've said this before because a lot of guys say, well, that's duplicitous, man. That's immoral. That's unethical for them to say one thing and do another. Yeah, that's called the medium is the message. You'll find that in that book right there. But guys think that that's like there's this sense of moral duty that women have. I keep saying, women have no problem with cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
And particularly
Facts.
and particularly so if either one, like cognitive dissonance is a conflict of two different thoughts, holding two different conflicting thoughts at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Or two beliefs or whatever it is, right? And then trying to rationalize away. If both of those options that are conflicting both lead to an optimized hypergamy, women have no problem with that whatsoever.
That's why women flake. That's why they always say it's a man's word, not a woman's word.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm a man of my word, not a woman of my word. I tell guys all the time.
No problem.
Women, like, the men are taught do what's right. Women are taught do what's right for you guys. Now, that's the difference.
This is a perfect example of this. Remember when the girls were on here and you were talking about like, oh, I want you to stop being an OnlyFans girl. I want you to. Ladies, what would you say if I told you if you were my girlfriend and I told you to close your Instagram or why don't you close your Instagram organically out of genuine desire because you only want to be with me? Why would you not do that? And every girl gets their fur gets up, because because
literally
because they don't want to because they want to leave that option open.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Right, because they can be with that one chick that was here. I think I asked you to ask her like how old she was and how old the boyfriend was on your text.
Yeah.
And the reason I asked that is because I wanted to see, is it going to work out? First of all, and second of all, it was like she was like really adamant about keeping her Instagram and keeping her options open, and that's really all Instagram is.
Yeah.
Dating dating right now in Western societies on Instagram and in the social media age is brand management. And women understand that instinctively. Again, it's that cognitive dissonance. Why wouldn't you do that? Well, I want to. That's the cognitive dissonance. I can still have perfect boyfriend, and I can still be online kind of sexy girl in case there's some other guy that's out there, and I'm good with that. I'm okay with advertising my sexuality and my sexual agency, but I still want to be with this perfect guy. Alpha fucks, possible alpha fucks with beta bucks. So the perfect security.
I can't tell you how many girls are in our DMs with boyfriends right now, and it's like scary to me. Like guys, they don't even know what's going on.
Yeah,
and it's like, just like you said,
cognitive dissonance that leads to an optimized hypergamy is no problem. We don't find any kind of rationale for that.
We 1 in 4 women is on some kind of antidepressant or anxiety medication. That's only the women that actually went to go see a psychiatrist.
There you go. That's true.
That is true.
Let's transition over to.
Let me just. And this is the easiest. This is the easy one for men. What's men's innate sexual strategy? Right? Were you going to ask me this?
Oh, I was actually going to go into sex. I was going to go into sex.
So for men's innate, so hypergamy is women's innate mating strategy. There are social buffers that have historically kept women from enduring the worst aspects of hypergamy, right? There's the church and there's social stigmas.
Yes.
So it's
constraints on hypergamy.
Again, remember, hypergamy is not a straight jacket, okay? So it's like guys think, oh, well, I'm doomed, whatever. There used to be ways that we would limit and buffer the worst aspects of it. Those are more or less gone now because we
used to be religion and shame and the Scarlet Letter and all those other things.
Whenever I listen to religious trad cons like on Daily Wire or whatever, and it's some chick on there talking, making it's Jesus, and they want to make appeals to morality and stuff like that. I get why they want to do that because that used to be a buffer on women's sexuality. And women say, well, we were repressed. Yes, you were. And there was a reason for that. There was a very good reason for that. So you don't get depressed. So you have a lower rate of divorce. So we can create good, strong families with a mother and a father. There's so much that goes along with that. Yes, you were repressed. You know who else was repressed? Men were repressed too. Because we had responsibility to be masculine and man up and be a good provider and have all this other stuff that would go along with that. Yes, we had control. Yes, we had authority. But we used that authority, ideally, I'm not saying men were perfect. They weren't. But they weren't tyrants all the time, right? And so they had authority to affect that responsibility that was a natural part of patriarchy. And we wonder why women are depressed and unhappy and higher rates of, with promiscuity and everything else. So that's that side. And then to complete the whole thing for men, men's innate mating strategy is two things: unlimited access to unlimited sexuality.
Bam.
That's all there is. And guys will say, no, I want to have a good wife. And that's your mating strategy. But in a perfect world, it would look like porn. That's why online porn is so popular. You want to know why guys are addicted? These guys are addicted to porn. Yeah, of course they are. Unlimited access, unlimited sexuality. Yeah. That's exactly why you're addicted to porn.
I always tell the ladies, if you literally give a man $1 million of blue check and a bunch of models, he's gonna affect his sexual strategy and bang all those chicks. Men are monogamous a lot of the time by necessity and by the fact that they don't have other options. Men, we talk about truths on the male side and the female side, guys. A lot of the time, you know what I'm saying? A man is as faithful as his options, which transitions perfectly.
I just want to bring one point real quick. Just add to that as well, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, guys, golden nugget here. You want to know why some girls aren't on Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, on these dating apps? Because Instagram is the biggest dating app in the world right now. Because once again,
brand management.
They don't want to be seen on those lesser apps.
Yep.
They want to be seen
a lot of them
in HD pictures, videos on Instagram, and it's so on the low you would never even know. Like for example, let's say you're dating a girl, right? Yeah, babe, I deleted my Tinder, my Bumble for you, whatever. But she has Instagram all the time open. It's for a reason. So she's marketing herself to other people. So once again, Instagram is one of the biggest dating apps in the world. Don't forget, we said it here on the podcast.
Okay. And so we're going to transition over now to... We set perfect segue right into female versus male promiscuity. Why having sex with a lot of men ruins women, but versus it doesn't necessarily have the same negative effects on men. And a lot of people, want to say, oh, that's misogynistic, this is sexism, whatever it is. We're going to show you guys the stats on how sex significantly changes men, so it changes women versus men, and how it has serious consequences, and why religion and religion, society, etc., since the beginning of time have done everything they can to repress female sexuality, because we have what we have now, where we have an epidemic of women that, quite frankly, aren't happy on prescription medication, that have the lowest satisfaction levels ever. So let's talk a little bit about that. With we talked about the sexual strategies, everything like that. So let's talk a little bit about that.
First and foremost, I realize we live in what I've termed as the TLDR generation, which is too long, didn't read.
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, so attention spans being what they are. If you want a really deep dive into what I'm about to talk about, you have to read this book by Dr. Tim Burkhead, which is called Promiscuity. And it goes into how animals, the animal kingdom, and not just human beings, but like everything, is pretty much the baseline. Is promiscuity amongst all kinds of all different species. There are very few species on planet Earth that aren't promiscuous in some way. There are very few species that don't find some sort of benefit in getting the best genetic specimen they can from one male and getting the best provisioning from another. And if you don't believe me, all you've got to do is look at the new studies about how human female ovum will select between differing sperm at the fertilization site in the uterus. Something that I think I mentioned this one time before here. I'm not really sure, but the only reason why an evolutionary adaptation like that would exist is if there were enough different sperm at the point of fertilization, that there would need to be an adaptation for that. And really, what it is, it's not like it's not like the ovum says, "Oh, you and you." It's the proteins and whatever it is that's around that ovum. Again, I'm not a reproductive scientist, so go look this up for yourself. But the ovum itself secretes, it's like a protein kind of thing, so it slows down certain sperm and it allows the other one to swim faster than the other one because it wants to select for that one instead of that one. That only exists if there's different men's sperm at the site of fertilization.
You are not the father.
Right. So, and the reason I'm starting with that is because whenever I talk about hypergamy or any of the things that I talk about, it goes from micro to macro, and that's the micro side of things right there. So adaptations like that, and there's other ones too, but adaptations like that don't exist unless promiscuity made sense somewhere along the line. Maybe it doesn't now, but it certainly did in the past, and we're still having to deal with the vestiges of what caused those things in the first place. So it is in women's best interest to be promiscuous, right? To get the best seed and to get the best need, to get the best sugar daddy that they can get, while still keeping their options open on Instagram. So if the hot guy in the foam cannon party calls them up and says, "Hey, let's go and party tonight," I'll be right there. Right? So there's that balance between, and why? Because of micro to macro. So if you look at the biological, I usually, whenever I'm coming up with our theorizing, let's just say, I go from biological to the personal to the sociological. Okay, so the biological in this case is like the zygote and sperm and like what's in the innate interest for men and women when it comes to breeding and reproduction. Then it's the personal. What's the best between you and the woman that you're with, or the woman that you're gaming, or what's good for her and what's good for you? That's the personal. And there's a sociological, religious, political, whatever. We can scale it up from there. But all of that goes all the way back down, to the biological. So that's the flow of sort of like, coming up, seeing the sort of the theme or the order and the chaos, I guess. So as far as men's reproductive strategy is adversarial to women's. Men are technically selected, okay? That means that they can breed a lot. As John from Modern Life Dating has coined the term,
shout out to him.
Ejaculate and evacuate, right? That in our evolutionary past, back on the savannah, back in sub-Saharan Africa, that made sense. You want to know why guys can get a hard-on when the wind blows when they're like 19 years old? Because they can breed really quickly and get the hell out of there. So you see the hot girl who is the centerfold. You see the girl who's attractive and arousing, and you get a boner because she's like, oh, she's hot, she's half naked. Let's go. Let's go and hit it. The reason why men's sex response is always on is because it had to be in our evolutionary past. So when women say, oh, men are dogs, or why is it okay for men to cheat and it's not okay for women to cheat? Well, the reason for that is because men have a much higher investment in their own reproduction if they're following their own innate mating strategy. It's much more difficult for a guy to breed a lot and to breed well
than it is for women, because women are, like you always say, we say this a million times, they're the gatekeepers, they're the ones that they're the lock and you're the key, right?
Yep.
You have a shitty lock, you got a master key. We've talked about that about a bazillion times. So, so when we're talking about the R selection, men can breed a lot. We can technically father a lot of children in one ejaculation, right? Yep. Women only have sperm is cheap, eggs are expensive.
One kid per year,
right?
them.
Exactly. It's one, so that's why the barrier to entry, literally, is pretty high. Usually pretty high. That's why when it's pretty low, we go, you don't have any respect for yourself, because and why do we do that? Because biologically speaking, biological, personal, political, biologically speaking, if you're easy, you're not really a good bet for paternity. If anybody gets you, then why would I want to invest anything more than perfunctory lay with you? Why would I do anything different? So for guys, when we talk about like men's innate mating strategy, unlimited access to unlimited sexuality, that makes sense from men's mating strategy to hit it and quit it. To get in, get out, get done with as many women as humanly possible. Now, sociologically speaking, there's a lot of bad things that happen as a result of that. So we have to have a lot of control, and we teach men, keep your dick in your pants, right? Keep your control. That's why there's a higher kind of standard for men when it comes to sexuality than there is for women. And women are going to lose their minds when I say that, but it's not women who are being caught with it's not female senators who are being caught with hookers in hotel rooms, or female televangelists getting caught with, being a sugar daddy, right? Yeah. That's not, but we hold those men, we say, you must resign your position because that's sexual immorality, mister. And we don't expect that same level of justice or that same level of, interest from women, because we presume that women aren't as sexual as men. No, they are. They're
wrong.
And they have a much higher interest in it too, because at the same time, women are K-selected, meaning they're looking for the best quality guy that they can get a hold of, that they can, like the high value man you talk about all the time on this show, right? Mm-hmm. That's part of the biological interests of women. So they have to find the best of the best. And that best is two things, alpha fucks and beta bucks, once again. So they're looking for that, and they're filtering for that.
You want to pull a graph on this, by the way?
I don't think I had one for this.
Okay, all right. I know the R and K selection is
R and K selection, and I think that a lot of people don't like it when I say that, because they think it makes them think that I'm saying that men and women are different species.
Yeah.
And we're not. I'm just saying the strategy is R selection and K selection. I'm not saying that innately humans are R or K. It actually depends on what their sociological and environmental conditions are at that particular time. But if left to our own devices, again, why is pornography so popular? Because men are R-selected.
Exactly.
We want variety, but why do we want variety?
Men universally pay for porn. No, women rarely do.
Yeah, there's the strip clubs don't exist because women are so into strip clubs, right? They don't make it rain for
that entire industry would literally be bankrupt. OnlyFans, strip clubs, pornography, whatever, it would be bankrupt if it relied on women to pay for it.
Yeah. It would not.
Nightclub industries, everything. But sorry, go ahead.
So you've got those two, and then I'm sorry, where were we at with the?
We're talking about female promiscuity versus male promiscuity. The differences in how it affects men and women.
For men, promiscuity makes sense because R selection, hit it and quit it. Promiscuity for women is different. Cuckoldry is the name of the game for women. Get the guy who is the hottest guy that they can get with, breed with. That's the sexy sons theory, because the sexier the guy is, then that she reproduces with.
Who came up with that theory again? What's her name? Psychologist.
I forget.
I'll look it up.
Sexy sons theory. It's actually, you could find it on Google easy enough, but it's basically that woman wants the best genetic specimen because her sons will grow up to breed with the next best genetic specimen. Okay, that's not just about humans. It's about a lot of different things, a lot of different animals.
Patrick J. Weatherhead?
That might have been
and Raleigh J. Robertson of Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario.
Yeah. So sexy sons theory is another one. So it makes promiscuity for men and women make sense. We are promiscuous animals by nature. We are monogamous by our behavior, by our sociology, by what works best for us. So even Muslims, you only get 4. You don't get unlimited access.
You don't get unlimited.
And you're not supposed to, as far as I know, you're not supposed to be jerking out the porn either. But you get 4, great. But you're limited to 4. And that's an option as far as Abu American was telling me about that when I was writing.
Yeah, there's a check and balance on it. You need to be able to support each one financially the same.
Right. Again, patriarchy. You have to be, you get 4 chicks. Nice. All right. It's not like you're having an orgy with all 4 of your wives, but you get to bang 4 different women and you have 4 different families as a result of that. But you are also, ideally speaking, you're also responsible
financially
for the children, for the women and everything else. And as a Muslim man, you have responsibility, but you also have the authority over those women to affect the choices you would need to have the responsibility in the first place.
Yes.
So that's the and again, yes, people are going to say, well, what about society? War-torn societies tend to be the ones that have polygamy as the basis. And you are right. That's statistically true. And that's why monogamy has been sort of the default for the worldwide kind of.
It's how the United States was built in the 1950s.
And that's post-agrarian now too. So it's not like, Father Abraham had 2 wives and 4 concubines or whatever it is, It's not like it makes better sense sociologically speaking that betas can actually reproduce, because if they don't, what happens is beta males form coalitions because they can't get laid and they can't reproduce, and that creates an existential crisis for men, right? Because they need to be able to reproduce. So that's why you get the soulmate myth. That's why you get one-itis. That's why you get like Shakespearean love stories like there's only one girl out there for me. That is the result. We need mythology like that to enforce socially enforced monogamy. We have to teach us that we have to have these romantic, like Romeo and Juliet, right? We had to go to the grave for this one person. There's only one person in the world for a soulmate, right? It was eHarmony. Have you seen? Oh man, have you guys seen? Maybe you haven't. On Netflix, there's a series called The One, and people kept telling me I don't know if I wanted to watch it or not.
Locked in a room.
No. It's a series, and what it is these technologists who figure out biologically or hormonally how to track down the perfect person for you, right? There's this perfect person. You live in Los Angeles, California, and she lives in South Africa or something like that, and they pair you up and they have your match, and it's like proven, like scientifically proven that this is your one soulmate. And there has never been in the history of mankind a more damaging like fantasy than the idea that is even a possibility whatsoever. Because then they're like coming up with homosexual matches and everything else too, because you're biologically, hormonologically, pheromonally, whatever matches for one another.
The agenda.
But that is how endemic the soulmate myth is. They still believe in it today. We still really like the one that got away, alpha widows, right? I just did a thing on alpha widows. I did another thing on war brides not too long ago. But alpha widows, like the one that got away. If I just could have got with my one, right? It's like the end of Titanic, where Rose is dropping the heart to Jack at the bottom of the thing. It's like it doesn't matter that the guy that she spent most of her life with pretty much funded her, alpha widowhood for the guy at the bottom of the ocean right now. But that's the romantic nature, and that's the mythology that keeps monogamy as the standard that is still going on today. Now
it protects both genders almost from themselves, because it allows the men sexual access, so they have something to work towards and something to crave for. I always say a man's children are his greatest motivation to get up in the morning and work hard, and it keeps women from acting out on trying to get the best, and all the men, because I always say if you leave hypergamy to its own devices, kind of like how it is now with the the global sexual marketplace and liberation, whatever, what happens is all the power goes to the high value men, and these guys are just gonna have sex with the women and kick them to the curb, which creates, the destabilization, like we were saying before. Family units create stable societies. That's how the United States was built in the 1950s, with nuclear families, with monogamous men and monogamous women working towards a goal of raising children in a safe household.
And that also gets back to kin altruism and human tribalism. And I will put this out there right now because I hear Tim Pool like butchering this constantly.
Okay, let's do it.
Or I get it from Jordan Peterson occasionally. Everybody's against tribalism or tribal identity, or we should just ban tribalism. Tribalism in human beings is a feature. It's not a bug. Okay, your first tribe is your family. The woman you made love to, the woman who bore your children and has half of your genes in that's your first tribe right there. Human beings will always form tribes. This right here is a tribe, okay? The band I play in is a tribe. The guys you got workout partners or guys that you see at the gym all the time, that's your workout tribe. We will always form coalitions. We will always form tribes. Tribalism in human beings is a feature, not a bug. Can it be a bad thing? Absolutely. Absolutely can be, particularly when it's like, gangs, when it's a tribal identity that above all else. But the thing is the reason why gangs work and the reason why the Las Vegas Golden Knights kicked the Avs ass last night is because they're a tribe. That sports team is a tribe, and it's this brotherhood. You ever watch Band of Brothers, right? You ever watched? If you've ever been, you've been in the military, right? Like,
no, never.
Well, if you've been on deployment, it's like the guys who like can't get enough of being on deployment is because they want to go back to their tribe. They want to go back to the guy. I can't let my guys down. I'm gonna re-enlist so I can get back in my squad, right? That's the tribalism, and it's different for men and it's different for women, but there's still that tribalism that is a part of all of that. And I don't think that that's something that you necessarily want to pull out of the human, right? You can take the human out of the tribe, but you can't take the tribe out of the human. And that's very important, I think, in a sexual marketplace perspective as well, but also in a sociological perspective too.
Cool.
Okay. So can we talk real quick about marriage and divorce and how, I guess, because there's so many debates about how female promiscuity affects marriage and her ability to pair bond, all this other stuff.
Oh, yes.
Let's have this definitive conversation right now about it. I don't know if you want us to pull up any graphs here as far as there was one I know that we had.
There's one in there. Yeah. Well, this is where things get real dicey because and I hear you bring this up occasionally when you're doing your let me hold this up real quick. I hear this occasionally when you get this is from the GSS. That's a GSS study. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
That technically proves the Pareto principle. Back.
Marriage.
That's single motherhood.
Yep.
Single motherhood.
Oh, yeah, we still got to cover that
going.
too.
Those are the births. Did I give you the right one? Let me hold on.
Oh, it's a link actually.
Yeah, it's the link.
I know it's a link. I know which one it is.
So let me just while you're digging it up, let me throw this in out there. Okay,
like the video, guys.
Okay, this is another thing. Is whenever we're talking about that's the marriage rates.
Not that one.
Divorce rate.
The sexually scroll up.
Happiness.
Yeah, there we go. Of Marshall happiness.
Cool. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, okay. Now, granted, this is IFS, so bear with me. I know that they're like kind of this conservative, religious kind of thing, but the stats are legit for this. Does sexual history affect marital happiness? Yes, it does. It does in many different ways. The first way is that women with higher lay counts, with higher notch counts, body counts, whatever it is, above 10, tend to live less satisfying lives, right? They tend to report more unhappiness. They tend to report more marital unhappiness when they do get married. They tend to have higher incidence of depression. They also, what was the other one? They also have higher incidence of divorce as a result of that. Mm-hmm. So, and this is in women. So women with higher notch counts, higher lay counts right now, higher incidences of casual sex. There was I think I gave you this one, but there's maybe it's right here. It's the percentage of adults who have like different lay counts. If you go back to like say the 90s, it's different than it is in 2021, obviously. Mm-hmm. On average, women had something like 4 and men had something like 7 lay counts. So like maybe 3 more than most women on average as an average. So if you've had more than 7 women, gentlemen, you're above average in some way.
All right.
Yeah, there you go. But as far as clinical depression is concerned, as far as incidence of divorce is concerned, as far as marital happiness or just overall happiness, depression levels are much higher amongst women who have higher lay counts. And you can also see, and I'll tell you, it's not so much, when I'm focusing on stats like this, it's not like the girls who have like 10 or 12 or above lay counts that I focus on. It's the ones that have 0. Because those are the women who report the least amount of marital unhappiness. I waited until marriage before I had sex, and now I'm very, very happy. Now, The Atlantic has done a lot of articles on this as well. It's like basically it's like ignorance is bliss, right? You don't know if you don't know what you're not getting, then of course you're going to be happy, right? So there's that aspect of it too, and that again goes back to the difference between local sexual marketplace versus global sexual marketplace. So if you've got a woman who had zero notch count and she had a baby when she was like 21 years old and she didn't know what she's missing, if you can get her to the epiphany phase and she doesn't know what she's missing, she's probably going to have a pretty decent life if the guy is invested in their long-term security and everything else, and she seems to have balanced the hypergamous equation, right?
Yeah.
So, but if she doesn't do that, or if she does that and she's still involved in like, say, Instagram or on social media, and she's seeing that her sisters and her girlfriends are all out doing girls' night out in Vegas, partying with
seeing the grass is potentially greener on the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
The hypergamy itch starts to come.
Making up for missing out is what it ends up being. Oh, I'm with this joker. Why would I be with him? Like, my sister's got it with like 10 other guys, and it's eat, pray, love, right? Divorce your husband, you'll have a better life, kind of thing. And it's called divorce porn. That's what it is. And so I'm more interested really in women who have like the 0 partner count or the 1 partner count before they get with a guy. Also, I want to say this is that.
And this isn't to say that women that have a higher notch count can't get married and have a long-term relationship.
No, absolutely
But guys, we operate on probabilities here,
stats.
not possibilities.
Okay.
So, the probability that she probably wouldn't be the best, I guess, how do I say this, candidate for a long-term relationship and or marriage, the highest investment on the male side, are fairly high, directly proportional to her her past sexually.
So go ahead.
And think about it, right? If she's had partners in the past, she might have had an imprint that stood there.
That's where I was going to go.
Test of time.
Yeah.
So think about this. Facebook chats, Snapchat, all those conventions where they can reach back out to that partner that gives them that imprint can stay to the test, to forever.
It's not a numbers game. It's an alpha imprint game.
Yep.
I've written about this. I just did an Alpha Widows show, and I talked about this. You can get a woman who has only 4 partners. If one of those partners was like the best alpha, it was like Jason Momoa, right? Like she's going to remember that guy for the rest. You always remember your first, right? She's always going to be sort of the alpha widow of that one guy.
BBC.
Does it matter that she had 4, or does it matter if she had 10 if she's imprinted on a guy who's a very strong alpha that she's never going to forget in the rest of her life? So is it a numbers game or is it an alpha imprint game? Now, here's the role. This is me spitballing. This is me, not statistics. But if a woman has 100 partners, out of those 100, how many of them are Jason Momoa? Right? How many of those are the guy that left an imprint on her that you have to be the one to sort of be the guy who outdoes that? That's the benchmark, right? That's the metric by which she's going to measure all the other guys past that, because if she doesn't, she's going to be pining for that guy as her alpha widow.
Exactly.
So that's why this is me thinking, like, sort of like connecting the dots here, because they never do this in these studies. All they do is they just look for reporting of like depression or I'm unhappy, right?
Yeah.
Or the divorce rates
never
and everything else.
try to figure out
they
the why
never
or how.
they never try to find the correlation, because it's unflattering to female nature if they do so, and that doesn't feel
Sexist.
good. Doesn't feel good. Stop it. Stop connecting those dots, right? So what happens is you get the idea is that if there's an alpha imprint on that one woman, it doesn't matter if it could be one previous lover. If that guy was so much of a badass that he's been ruined for every other man afterwards. Certainly the betas who would want to be the ones who step up and take care of her and everything else. That's how you get the end of Titanic. Again, like Rose, the one, her heart will go on. My heart will go on, right? She drops the diamond thing at the bottom of the ocean kind of thing, like giving her, as she dies at like 90 years old or something. And you see all of her past life that was afforded to her by the rich guy that she ended up marrying. But now she's Amelia Earhart and she rode English horses and she was, a suffragette or whatever. She lived this really great life, but not because she was really in love with the guy that she was with. She was really in love with the dead guy, the alpha that she could never get over, and her heart will go on. She dies, and that's the end of the romantic thing. So, as far as promiscuity is concerned, that's one side. That's the female side. The male side is men do not suffer from those same maladies that women do. Women will say, that's terrible, that's unfair. Yeah, you're right. It is unfair. Because men and women are different. Sorry, not sorry. That's the double standard of how come guys are superheroes if they bang a lot of women. Because it's hard for guys to bang a lot of women, right? You have to be an alpha for women to want to get with you in the first place, so you can have a higher notch count to begin with. So and you understand women. You're a natural. You're lucky with the ladies, kind of thing. But what happens, and these are statistical studies, is because men's brains are not wired the same way for emotion, we can separate the sex act from the emotional investment. And so, don't believe me? Why is pornography a multi-bazillion dollar juggernaut online right now? Because men can separate the sexual aspect of it from the emotional aspect of it. Women can't do that because they have a higher investment cost. They have to fall in love. I have to feel right. The moon has to align with the stars. There has to be the right humidity in the room. I have to feel comfortable with you. All these things have to fall in line for her to want to get with you, at least in the long term is concerned, right? Because usually it's like she wants to bang the hot guy in the foam cannon party. That's like a prime opportunity. But when you're looking at long-term investment, when you're looking at starting a life with that person, for men, the consequences or the bad side of promiscuity is far diminished from what women's is. And again, women will say, that's horribly unfair. That's sexist. Yes, because reality is sometimes sexist.
Yep.
Because reality has a sexist bias at sometimes. And sometimes you're the woman and you're on the losing end of that. And most times when you're a guy, sometimes you're on the losing end of that as well. Oh boy, here we go.
Guys, so a couple months ago, right? Rollo said to us, hey man, we got a present for you guys coming soon in the mail. So we're waiting. And then one day we get a package from Brazil. We're like, oh shit, it's a bomb? What is this?
I thought you were going to like drown it in the sink or something.
And this is from Myron.
I thought it was like cocaine or something.
This is from Myron, the Punisher.
Yeah, thank you,
in
Rollo.
figurine. You can open it so they can.
Well, you always talk about the Punisher. You always talk about he's you're hulking out whatever. Whenever you're about to kick one of these girls off, it's like, oh man, here. And I'm watching the chat because you guys can't watch it go streaming up all the time. And I'm watching the chat and they're like, oh man, he's getting off.
Yeah, see, I'm scared. I don't want to open it because it's like a figurine.
Shut Rollo, man.
Wouldn't it lose
It's
value?
a collectible. No. Open it up.
Okay.
Put it on there.
Well,
it's from Brazil. How much could it be worth?
You can show them from outside, no?
Okay, yeah, I can show it from the outside. I'll open it up while we continue.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is pretty sick.
Let me tell you the story behind that. I ordered that because I knew you guys were coming up on 100,000. For your sub count, and I was hoping it would get here on the time that you crossed 100,000. I was just about accurate, but by the time you got it, you were already at 120,000. And then by the time you guys had your 100,000 party at whatever, you're already at 200,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I hope he likes it.
So we still got to cover abortion and single fathers versus single mothers.
Sure.
So so we talked about promiscuity, how it affects men and women differently. Let's hit abortion and single mothers and single fathers because it kind of ties into it anyway.
Okay. You have to remember that abortion has a function to it.
Do you want us to pull up a study, by the way, on that one?
Let me build it up real quick. I've gone on record. I've said this a million times on Twitter. Abortion is the ultimate expression of hypergamy.
Yes.
There's nothing that says he's not the right guy, like the unilateral ability to end a pregnancy, his genetic legacy in utero. Okay, so it's you have to remember what is abortion. Abortion is a fail-safe against bad reproductive choices for women. That's what it ends up being. Okay, now women will say, well, what about grape? What about forced?
Let's address that.
What about forced sexual copulation? Okay, that's a good one.
Okay.
Let's keep that one.
Use that one in the future.
Okay, what about forced sexual copulation?
Clever.
So when you look at statistics, and there's not a lot of statistics, when I'm looking up for stats for this, there are very few stats for the reasons why women have abortions. One of them happens to be Florida. Florida actually, the state of Florida says, okay, you can have legal abortion, but you have to at least fill out a questionnaire and tell us why you're having this abortion, okay? There are very few states in the union that do that because they don't want to be intrusive or, again, we live in a gynocentric social order. Legislation says, how dare you? You're not supposed to ask these questions. Florida does, all right? They don't give a shit. So if we're going by Florida and some of the other there's a few other states as well.
Yeah, to collect this data.
So Florida collects this data, and if you look at the reasons why women have abortions, the incidence of rape is like 1.4%.
Oh wait, hold on. For all these angry feminists that get mad when I say that abortion is 100% a woman's choice, and they're the ones that if you have a kid, it's your fault.
It's not quite 100, but it's damn close.
Yeah, like because they use the grape as what if she's graped, and that literally makes up like
very low.
The incidence of rape. The incidence of forced sexual copulation is so low that it is almost statistically insignificant when it comes to overall reporting of why am I getting an abortion. Okay. Another one is what if there is a danger to the woman's, where she could die in pregnancy. Okay.
That's
and
fair.
I'm not saying for both of those reasons, of
course, understandable.
And remember, okay, I should have prefaced with this. I'm not for or against rape. I'm about analyzing it and figuring out what is the latent purpose of it. Okay, objective reality. We have an obligation to objective.
Let's take the feelings out and look at the numbers.
Push the feelings
Obviously,
aside.
grape is horrible.
Yes,
but
it is. I'm not endorsing it. I'm not saying I'm not endorsing it as a sexual strategy. I'm not saying it's good, it's right, whatever. I'm not saying that. Okay, but what I am saying is that statistically speaking, most abortions are elective.
Yes.
They are, and as far as Florida is concerned, 93 to 94% of abortions are the choice of the mother. No other. I think they said incest. They said and a danger to the mother, and then there was a forced copulation, and there's another one.
This and all this aggregated was 9%. You said total,
something like that. It was close
all
to
of them together.
It was close to like not even 9. I think it was like more like 8 or 7, somewhere around there. But anyways, as far as the forced copulation is concerned, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to. I'm not even saying you shouldn't be able to have an abortion if you want to. I'm just saying that the reasons that we give when we talk about abortion, when we look at what the function is, what's the latent purpose of it is a fail-safe for bad reproductive choices.
Yes.
Overwhelmingly a fail-safe for bad reproductive choices. Now, ladies, if you're watching this and you're getting upset, I'm not saying you shouldn't have that choice. I'm just saying those are the reasons why you have it. That's what the function of it is. And there's nothing that empowers women more than, 1, hormonal birth control, and number 2, being able to have a fail-safe like that. So I can back out of a bad idea, a bad reproductive choice if I want to. There's other ones too, right? That child support is also another one. Well, I'm going to have the kid, but at least I'll have money coming in from the parent, whether he's the actual biological father or not. Maybe it's in my interest, maybe it's not. But so you've got the fail-safe of abortion. That's why I keep saying that it is the ultimate expression of hypergamy, because if women say they want to back out of it, men don't have a choice. We don't, like, how many times have you heard this? Whenever they're talking, and they're going to be talking about it.
Women argued with me about it just like 2 weeks ago. It's abortion is equal. It's equal. It's a man's fault too. And I'm like, no.
To the tango.
Yeah, and I was like, no, it's your fault because you have 100% control.
You have the control. Once the sperm leaves your body, women are in control of your sperm.
100%.
Sometimes even when it doesn't. Right.
Yeah.
I've used incident, and I did an episode on this not too long ago about the incidence of if you have like if you break up with your wife and you've already given a sperm sample for like a fertility clinic, your wife can still use that sperm sample to impregnate herself, and you are on the hook.
Absolutely.
For that.
The NBA released a controversial letter back, I think, in 2015, telling the NBA players that they need to flush
the
condoms down the
because
toilet.
They'll whip it up in them
to protect the players from getting, from women impregnating themselves to try to get a check. You know what I'm saying? So
there's an incentive. There are incentives and there are disincentives for women to get pregnant. If they don't want to get pregnant, they don't have to be pregnant. If they want to be as protected as they can be with hormonal birth control, then they can do that. For men, it's not necessarily the same thing. So guys say, well, because again, why do we have this onus on men for the responsibility of sex? Well, you couldn't keep it in your pants. If men could just keep it in their pants, then there wouldn't be any abortions. If they weren't having good, fun sex that we give them, then we wouldn't get pregnant. Well, yeah. Does it take 2 to tango? Absolutely it does. But it only takes 1 to abort a child.
Bam.
And that's the woman who does it. Her body, her choice. And you're going to see this come up, by the way, in September, because the Supreme Court of the United States is going to take up the Mississippi abortion law that's now on the books right now. They've officially stated that they're going to look at it. And between now and I think probably around September, sometime in the fall, when they hear this case, Mississippi has decided that you can't have an abortion past like the 3rd trimester. Like that's it. So 1st, 2nd trimester, you can abort it. 3rd trimester, no, because there's a heartbeat, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
They're saying, there's a religious, emotional investment in this too. So whenever you talk about abortion, every woman that's watching this in the comments here is going to approach this from an emotional perspective, because they're like, that's violation. I don't want to be.
It's my body.
So what they do is they conflate abortion with forced sexual copulation.
Yeah.
First of all, statistically speaking, that's not why abortion happens.
Yep.
And even if it does, it still backs up the presumption that it is a fail-safe. So even if you had forced sexual copulation, you have the fail-safe of aborting the child if you want. It doesn't invalidate anything that I've just said. Yeah. So you've got that going on, and the Supreme Court is going to hear this very soon. And so between now and say the fall, you're going to see this ramping up of abortion rights, and it's like, what right don't you have? You can still, and they want to make it now. Of course, it is a right, and now we're going to make it a human right, and now it's a
and that's why women celebrate
right.
in all types of countries when abortion is passed. So, real quick, because I know we're tight on time here, Rollo, could we talk about the myth of equality between men and women, power couples, equal partnerships, all these egalitarian concepts within the confinements of a relationship between a man and a woman?
Sure. I think we touched on this a little bit earlier when I was talking about egalitarianism. I have in this book, actually, I have a chapter in book 4 called "The Lie of Equality."
Yep.
And when you say, and that sound, and yes, I am trying to aggravate you with that title, so you will read the book. So you actually read that
I love
chapter. Yes. So
Break it down for them.
He doesn't believe in equality. How dare him? He must be a supremacist.
Let's define equality first.
So that's the problem. That's exactly the
'Cause
premise
this is where all
of
the
the
problems
book.
are- yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because
Yep.
when we talk about equality, it sounds like something we should all be agreeing about. Like, well, we all want to be more equal. And you just said equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome.
Exactly.
Okay? Equality of outcome usually leads to tyranny. It usually leads to quotas. It usually leads to a less productive society. It usually leads to, it might make you feel good because retribution and restitution, but it's not a functional, pragmatic way, a logistical way to do things to run a society when you have equality of outcome. So that's number one. Number two is why do I say that I don't believe in equality? Because equality is one of these, as Ryan Stone would say, is a container word. You can put whatever you want to into the term equality. So whenever someone says, well, you don't understand feminism. Feminism is just about equality. No, it's not. And I can prove it to you on a daily basis by the next story that's coming up, that when we see how the standard of justice for men and women is different, that is not equality. And
66% more time men serve for the same crimes.
For the same crimes.
We want to talk about equality.
And then, of course, I always relate it to the rash, the endemic of female teachers who are forcing sexual copulation on their male students as old as 12, 13, 14 years old. Yes, that is what's known, and I will say the word statutory rape, because that's the legal definition of what that is. We won't say that, and everybody who criticizes, oh, I wish I would have had a teacher like that. No, because if you had a male teacher who sends just an inappropriate text to a woman, to a student, a 14-year-old girl, he is never going to work again. He is done in his entire life.
Yeah, you're going to jail too.
Women who, female teachers, and again, remember we were talking about how 77% of teachers in public schools are female?
Yeah.
And then people say, how come there's this rash of women who are, statutory rapists with these young men? Because 77% of your teachers are gonna, like statistically speaking, it's a pretty good chance that that's gonna happen if it's gonna happen at all.
And that's just the ones they find out about.
Exactly, the ones that don't say anything.
Yeah, most of the
hey, man, that's my teacher. I got it for free.
You know what I'm saying? Sorry, go ahead.
So, but yeah, because again, you want to talk about the standards, right? We were just talking about this a second ago. Why is it that like guys are superheroes when they can have sex when they want to? Well, we say that's a double standard until the 14-year-old kid is knocking it out with the 24-year-old teacher, and then they go, man, what a lucky guy. Oh, how is that any different than the double standard you were just talking about a minute ago with, gatekeeper or keymaster and gatekeeper, whatever. So we don't look at it in those terms. It takes Rollo Tomasi to connect those dots. So you guys will be, we'll think about that. But so there's the justice side of things. And so that's the equality side. So when people say, well, feminism is only about equality. No, it's not. It's not even about gender parity anymore, because we've already reached gender parity a long time ago. If anything, we're leaning farther over towards the female side of things than we are with the men. That's why when I look at Zero Hedge and they're saying, economic stagnation affects men more than it does women, they'll find in the gynocentric social order, the mainstream media will find some way to spin that. So men are dying, but women are most affected, right? That's what you're going to hear if there's any stat that affects men adversely, like, what is it? 3.5 to 5%, out of all? Was it 3 out of? Was it 5 out of 10? I forget what it is. It's men kill themselves 3.5 to 5 times more often than women do.
They're far more likely to be successful as well.
Okay,
women try, but they rarely actually do it.
They attempt it more, but men are more successful at it, right? And they're usually successful out of a particular demographic at a particular time in their lives. We don't give a rat's ass about that. Right? We write that off. There's no article. That doesn't get clicks, right? We don't want to talk about that. But if I said, men off themselves at 5 times the rate of women most affected, that will get clicks. Women will go, let me see what that's all
Hillary Clinton
about.
said that women are the biggest victims of war.
Yeah, the primary victims of war are women and children, I think is what she was saying.
And I'm just like,
stupid.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, however you can spin that. So is that equality?
She got a round of applause on
equality?
that. She got a round of applause. Anything that spins it where women are the victims and we're championing women, you're going to get an applause because it's anything that represses female sexuality, doesn't acknowledge women as equals to men, etc. It's always going. The female way of going is the correct way of going. Period.
Yeah.
Simple.
Well, okay. So let me put the dot at the end of this sentence here.
Yeah.
Is equality, the way we think about equality right now? We have it's subjective. We make it whatever suits our narrative, whatever suits our ideology, and then finally the last thing is this: is that equality, as the way that it's explained today, is presented in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. So equality only works if all things are equal. It only works if everybody is playing by the same rule set on the same team or whatever, right? Equality is only a thing according to what the challenge that is presented to it. I told you this yesterday. If I'm male, I'm biologically male. My pronouns are he and her, right? If I go and I want to have a baby, that's very unfair. That's very unfair to me. That's very unequal to me because the challenge is me giving birth. I can't do that. I'm biologically male. I don't have the parts to do that. So I can complain about that, or I can live with that and live the best life that I can. Most women want to change the game, and they don't want to play the game better. They want the world to accommodate them, and rather than them playing it better than they have been, right? They don't want to be good players of the game. They want to lower the nets in the WNBA, right? Seriously, they want to change the nature of the game. That's what they did in the NBA. It's like they want in the early days of the WNBA, they were talking about lowering the nets because the ladies couldn't dunk, right? And they thought, well, if the ladies can dunk, then more people will come in. And that's not the case. Like the soccer, what is that purple hair soccer girl?
Yeah, she wanted equal pay.
Equal pay. And I'm like, well, fuck that, man. I'm gonna go. I demand equal pay for my male OnlyFans site. Then how come I can't get it? That's because the challenge is I want to make $100,000 a month on OnlyFans just as Rollo Tomasi. How come I can't do that?
Exactly.
I'm going to
selling feet pictures.
Yeah. You don't see me suing OnlyFans saying I want you to give me $100,000 a month because that's endemic sexism. I would be laughed out of the.
They would,
but we don't laugh out. What's her face?
The female soccer players. Who, by the way, I'm going to go there, get destroyed by high school boys. The reason why, female sports is a joke, and I'm going to say that it's a joke because from a physicality standpoint, now we're talking about sports and athletic ability. So if we're going to talk about human performance, period, female sports is a joke. Go ahead, quote me on that. It is a fucking joke because if we're going to talk about humans in general, they are inferior when it comes to athletics and performance from a physicality standpoint. There's a reason why people pay to go to NBA games and to NFL games and they don't pay to go to MLS. And as a matter of fact, female MLS or female WNBA or whatever it may be. And the reason for that is because even women want to see the best of what human genetics can do. And unfortunately, it is male. The thing is this. A lot of women want equality of outcome instead of equality of opportunity. And here's the thing. Just by having different standards for men and women is inherently unequal because now we have to change standards for women for the military. A man has to do 50 push-ups. A woman can only do 20 and pass. That in itself already destroys the premise of equality because we're changing standards around to accommodate women. And I argue that when you do that, especially with something like the military, sports or whatever, you decrease the quality of whatever's going on, especially when it involves combat sports or whatever it is. Changes the game completely. And I agree with you. They don't want equality. They want the rules to change for their benefit. And that's just not the way it works. And I love your OnlyFans
because they're used to
example.
They're used to the world changing for them. Because why wouldn't it?
I don't see Sterling crying, saying, I don't make $100,000 on OnlyFans. This is BS. I don't see him protesting in Washington, D.C. because men live in a fact-based reality.
Well, men must become women just are. So when the world doesn't work for women, they, as a woman, they just are. They expect the world to be just are. Right? They expect it to cater to them. The other thing you're looking at right now is transgender in sports right now, and so when we
coming to bite them back.
Exactly. So again, it's the same. That is actually the same argument you were just making in the military. The objective reality doesn't change. It's not. That's the way of the world, right? The shark eats you if you're in the water. Okay, exactly. That's the objective reality. Okay, you can't swim as fast as a shark. It's got teeth. It eats you. Okay, that's it's horribly unfair, but that's what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And so when we put biological males into, like, say, women's wrestling, and we say, oh, but I'm really identify as a woman, right? Yeah, you're risking injury, first of all, for in something like that. And the second of all, what that is a stark contrast between change the game versus play the game better. Guys say, a biological male says, fine, like Zuby did this. He did the deadlifting. He's a deadlifting champion, female deadlifting champion, because he goes into the competition, says, I'm identifying as a woman today, goes in, kicks every woman's ass in that whole competition, goes home with the trophy, and then says, I'm a man again. And that's the biological reality being crashing into social constructionism, this emotionalism. We want to feel good. We want to have these people come in and compete on their own level. But the fact is that they want the game to change for them to accommodate their skills. Now, when those skills are so good and you've already changed the game, and those really great skills come into the game that you've already changed, and they kick your ass, then suddenly you have a sort of a dilemma, it's backfiring, existential problem.
Literally, what's going on is it's backfiring on them, because there's right now in Connecticut a bunch of track athletes, transgender boys, have went in and competed against girls, destroying them. They're taking all the scholarships away. And now they're starting to realize, oh, crap, this equality thing, we might have messed up here. You know what I'm saying? Because now it's getting played back on them. You guys want different standards, whatever? Cool. I'm a guy, I can't perform and beat the guys. Now I'm going to start to identify as a woman.
And also,
compete with you guys.
They're pulling the kids out of those schools because it's unfair.
Yeah. Right. And you will never, like this conversation that we're having right here, you will never hear this in mainstream media.
Hell no. This is the most basic conversation ever.
Well, that's a given, right? You will never, you will go on to, say, Daily Wire or on these conservative, I don't know, Newsmax, whatever, even them who have a problem with transgender athletes, right?
Yeah.
We need to ban them. We need to keep them out of the, women's sports, men's sports, right? We need to do that. And they'll talk about it from an emotional perspective as well. You wouldn't think so, because they're conservatives, right? They're not the wokies. They're the conservative guys. They never acknowledge the problem, which is we're looking at objective reality. And the objective reality is that women want the game to change for them so that they can play the game better. Remember what we always say, was it don't wish it were easier, wish you were better,
Bang.
right? What women saying? We want it to be easier. And when women make it easier, then transgender athletes go, man, that looks easy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over there and compete and win. I'm going to be a winner over here.
Yeah.
So that's what they're going to do as a result of that. You will never hear that conversation on Candace Owens, on Daily, on Ben Shapiro. They'll talk about transgender athletes and they'll go, it's terrible. It's tearing apart Americans' families and blah, blah, blah. And they'll make it an ethical, emotional issue. They don't look at the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah.
This is what's going on.
Yeah.
But they don't want to talk about it, because if they do, they will offend the conservative feminists, because as much as they want to cry river about, I don't identify as a feminist, you are. Again, what do we start this show on? Everybody born after 1965, you've had the feminist ideology infiltrate the way that you think, your personal beliefs,
to some degree,
your political beliefs to some degree.
Yeah.
Why won't they do that? Because they don't, first of all, they don't understand that that's really the underpinning of all of that controversy. And if they bored down and distilled it down to that, they would lose viewers, because that would make women feel bad. And we don't want that to happen.
He is Rollo Tomasi, critically acclaimed author. Rollo, where can the people find you, please?
You can find me at therationalmale.com. That is my blog. You can always find me on my channel, which I've just changed over to be The Rational Male instead of Rollo Tomasi.
Okay.
So you can look me up on thank you, by the way, for the 100,000 subs.
Yeah, man.
Apparently you already know where the channel is. And then you can also find me on Twitter. I am at Rational Male, and Rollo Tomasi at Rational Male. Those are the easiest ways to get it.
Guys,
and
all
my books are all on Amazon.
Yes, the links are down below in the description. All of his books are down below in the description. His YouTube channel, all his social media. Guys, give him a follow. Get a book. Even if you're aware of this stuff, get a book and give it to your son, give it to your nephew, whoever it is.
It's life-changing.
It's life-changing stuff, guys.
And
get on Audible.
Thank you guys all for the super chats that we never got to. I apologize. I can go a long time, but I always am trying to balance being concise with being comprehensive, and this is where I had to be comprehensive.
No, absolutely. And guys, I hope you guys don't mind that we didn't read the super chats, but I know you guys are going to enjoy this when you listen to it back on a playback.
They understand.
And
they love the show.
timestamps and everything will be in there. Thank you guys so much for the support. Rollo, thank you.
Yeah. Anytime.
Thank you so much, man.
This is our tribe. This is our tribe.
Yo, we got chocolate, white, and chocolate. Oreos. Reversed.
I tried to tan so I would look like this guy, but this doesn't work.
Guys, here's Rollo Tomasi, the Godfather, man.
Yep.
Please subscribe to his YouTube channel. We will catch you guys in a little bit. We're going to do an after-hour show. Peace.
Peace.